Chapter 924. Longao's original intention was not to kill Lei Luo. He just wanted to play with him. Mph, I hate people who bargain. As soon as he said that, Lei Luo's face changed. Before he could figure out what was going on, an unparalleled power of the five elements enveloped him and suppressed him. Power of the five elements. In an instant, Lei Luo had already guessed the other party's identity. To be able to use such a strong power of the five elements, there was only one place that could do it. That was the Five Elements Sect. Five Elements Sect, one of the 10 pillars. 1 clan, 2 alliances, 3 sects and 4 sects. They were the Long Family, Dan Alliance, Martial Artists Alliance, WN Show Sect, Heaven and Earth Sect, Five Elements Sect, Wanjan School, Sword Sect, Purple Thunder Sect and Black Heaven Sect. Among the 10 pillars, only the Five Elements Sect had a deep understanding of the power of the five elements. It was also because of this that Lei Luo became more and more depressed. He did not know which expert of the Five Elements Sect he had offended. Not to mention, the Five Elements Sect and the Martial Artists Alliance had always minded their own business. No matter how arrogant the Five Elements Sect was, they did not dare to behave atrociously in the Emperor City. They simply did not put the Martial Artists Alliance in their eyes. Senior of the Five Elements Sect, aren't you a bit too much? Lei Luo could almost say that the other party was definitely a supreme Dao expert. Because just this aura alone, he did not have any resistance. Although the aura could not kill him, he could guess the other party's true strength. Within the Dragon Seal space. The aura that Longao released did not come from the Dragon Seal space, but from the Five Elements Primal Chaos Stone Tablet. After such a long time, although Longao and the Five Elements Primal Chaos Stone Tablet had not completely merged, he was already able to use a small amount of the Primal Chaos Stone Tablet's aura. What made Longao feel the most helpless was that this aura was unable to kill the enemy. It could only scare people. But in this situation, it was this aura that could not kill that scared Lei Luo. Even if Lei Luo was beaten to death, he would never have thought that things would turn out like this. Being completely suppressed, Lei Luo did not even think of fighting back. That was because from his point of view, the other party's aura was already so terrifying and his strength was not to be underestimated. Even if he were to fight back, he would only be seeking his own humiliation. If Lei Luo didn't make a move, he would never discover the secret. If Lei Luo were to make a move, he would definitely discover that the aura released by the other party was just a paper tiger. Which friend from the Five Elements Sect came to my Emperor City? Why don't you come out and meet us? A loud laugh was heard. Then, an old man strolled over. He seemed to be moving slowly, but he was actually as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, he was already beside Lei Luo. Seeing the old man, Longao immediately retracted the aura of the Primal Chaos Stone Tablet. Supreme Divine Dao? Longao had already sensed the aura of a Supreme Divine Path Cultivator before, so he knew very well that the expert who had just appeared was a Supreme Divine Path Cultivator who was above the Divine Path. Big Brother Tang, save me. Waving his hand, Tang Hao's expression was somewhat solemn because even he was unable to sense the other party's location. What did this mean? It was very simple. The other party's strength was above his. Tang Hao, the deputy chief of the Martial Artists Alliance. His strength was unfathomable, and he was also Murong Yangus' grandfather. Why don't you come out and meet me? What enmity do you have with Lei Luo? We can talk it out, how about it? This was still an Emperor City, so Tang Hao didn't believe that the other party would be so arrogant. Who are you? Hearing the other party's question, both Tang Hao and Lei Luo were somewhat surprised. Because with Tang Hao's status and strength, not to mention the Martial Artists Alliance, even in the entire Tianwu continent, he was a famous existence. The other party actually didn't know of Tang Hao's existence. This old man is Tang Hao, the deputy chief of the Martial Artists Alliance. May I know who you are? Within the Dragon Seal space. Hearing the other party introduce himself, Longao was extremely surprised. He never would have thought that the other party was Murong Yangus' grandfather, Tang Hao. So it's Deputy Chief Tang. Since Deputy Chief Tang has come out, then today's matter will end here. As for the enmity between me and Lei Luo, I will look for him in the future. Goodbye. Sir, please wait. No one replied. Tang Hao sighed deeply. It was hard for him to imagine that such an expert would actually want to deal with Lei Luo. Just which expert from the Five Elements sect was he? He didn't seem to know him. Big brother Tang, what should we do? Tang Hao's expression was somewhat ugly. He asked in a deep voice, Lei Luo, let me ask you now. Which expert from the Five Elements sect did you offend? Shaking his head, Lei Luo also wanted to ask who he had offended. Such an expert, even Tang Hao couldn't determine his strength. One could imagine how strong he was. Even if he had 10,000 guts, he wouldn't dare to offend such an expert. Big brother Tang, you should know my character best. I wouldn't offend such an expert. Tang Hao nodded. He was very clear about Lei Luo's character. Not to mention Lei Luo, even he would not casually provoke such an expert. The other party was too terrifying. From the beginning to the end, he could not even determine the other party's position. It was hard to imagine the other party's strength. No wonder he dared to enter the Imperial City alone. I'll report this to the Martial Artists Alliance. When the time comes, I'll ask the Five Elements sect what happened. I just sensed that although the other party wants to harm you, he doesn't have any killing intent. Otherwise, you would have already been killed. How could Lei Luo not know about this? It was precisely because of this that he became more and more afraid. Being stared at by such an expert at all times, not to mention him, even a supreme divine Dao expert would be afraid. Who exactly did he offend? Why did he have to find him? Big brother Tang, what should I do? Looking at Lei Luo's worried face, Tang Hao didn't know what to do. But since it had already happened, it had to be solved quickly. Because no one knew when this mysterious expert would attack Lei Luo. Once he attacked, there was no doubt that Lei Luo would die. Tang Hao felt somewhat apologetic towards Lei Luo. It turned out that Lei Luo's father and Tang Hao were good friends. Lei Luo's father had fallen in order to save Tang Hao. This was also the real reason why Tang Hao had been taking care of Lei Luo for so many years. From now on, don't leave the Martial Artists Alliance until I solve this matter. Do you understand? I understand. I'll leave first. Thank you, Big brother Tang. Since things had already come to this point, how could he refuse? Lei Luo didn't want to die. He sighed deeply, turned around and left helplessly. Soon, he disappeared without a trace. After Lei Luo left, Tang Hao prepared to leave as well. You're Tang Hao, Senior Tang? Chapter 925. Who are you? Tang Hao was surprised by the sudden appearance of the young man in front of him. In the Imperial City, including the Martial Artists Alliance, no one dared to call him that, let alone a young man. The young man who suddenly appeared was none other than Longao, who had just left the Dragon Seal space. Alliance Master Tang, I'm Black Wolf, Murong Yanger's friend. Black Wolf. Tang Hao was enlightened when he heard him introduce himself. He said, "Oh, so you're Black Wolf. Yang has already told me about you. Have you already entered the Martial Artists Alliance?" Powerful. Longao couldn't sense his true strength at all. The only thing he knew was that the Vice Alliance Master in front of him was very powerful. Vice Alliance Master Tang. Tang Hao waved his hand and said with a smile, "Since you're friends with Yang you can call me Elder Tang if you don't mind." Longao was delighted. He knew what Tang Hao meant. He was about to enter the Martial Artists Alliance. At that time, he would be surrounded by enemies and could encounter obstacles at any time. If he could get Tang Hao's help, everything would be much smoother. If that's the case, then I'll accept your offer, Elder Tang. Follow me. Longao nodded and followed Tang Hao into the nearest restaurant. The two of them casually ordered a few dishes and a pot of hot wine. They sat face to face and drank. I want to ask, how did you and Yang meet? Longao didn't hide anything about this. He told Tang Hao everything about himself and Murong Yang, including how they went through life and death together. After listening, Tang Hao sighed and said with a smile, "No wonder Yang values you so much. Black Wolf, you won the Alliance tournament this time. If there are no accidents, it shouldn't be a problem for you to enter the Martial Artists Alliance. Regarding this point, Longao also knew. Elder Tang, to be honest, although I can enter the Martial Artists Alliance this time, I'm surrounded by enemies. I hope Elder Tang can help me when the time comes. Who are your enemies? As the Vice Alliance Master of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tang Hao wasn't afraid of other Vice Alliance Masters, unless the Alliance Master himself came. Tang Hao wasn't the only Vice Alliance Master in the Martial Artists Alliance. Elder Tang, I believe you know about the grudge between me and Lu Tianxi. And Qian Yi. Following that, Longao also talked about the grudges between himself and Qian Yi. Longao's previous appearance was his current appearance. Therefore, he couldn't show his real face when he entered the Martial Artists Alliance. In this way, once he entered the Martial Artists Alliance, Qian Yi would definitely cause trouble for him. Black Wolf, although I promised Yang that I would help you when you entered the Martial Artists Alliance, you have to earn your own living. Do you understand what I mean? How could he not understand? Longao felt helpless. He thought that with Tang Hao's help, even if he entered the Martial Artists Alliance, he would be able to solve a lot of problems. However, Tang Hao's meaning was very clear. He didn't care about him. I know what to do. Black Wolf, I'll help you when it's appropriate. But most of the time, you have to face it by yourself. Without giving Longao any chance to speak, Tang Hao stood up and said that he had something else to do. Then he turned around and left. After a while, he disappeared without a trace. Longao stayed in the restaurant alone. It seemed that it was impossible to count on Tang Hao. However, no matter what, he had to enter the Martial Artists Alliance. At this point, Longao couldn't choose to give up. Moreover, Yu Yin was in a very troublesome situation. God knew what would happen. The more time he wasted, the more trouble Yu Yin would be in. Finally, he's here. Longao sneered. He suddenly stood up and walked outside. Outside the restaurant, Longao sped up. He was like a flash of lightning. After a while, he was out of sight. Uncle, I didn't expect that Black Wolf hadn't entered the Martial Artists Alliance yet. Shangguan too nodded. He was also a little surprised. According to their guesses, this person had offended his family. Anyone would choose to enter the Martial Artists Alliance. After all, if he entered the Martial Artists Alliance, even the Shangguan family wouldn't dare to act rashly. If they did, it would be seen as a provocation. At that time, the Martial Artists Alliance would be angry, and the Shangguan family wouldn't be able to resist. In that case, no matter what happens this time, we can't fail. Uncle, Black Wolf can suddenly disappear. What should we do? Shangguan Mu was very depressed. Until now, he still didn't know how Black Wolf could do it. How could he disappear into thin air, even if his uncle came in person? Shangguan Tu thought for a while and said, if I'm not mistaken, Black Wolf can suddenly disappear because he has a space artifact. Space artifact? Shangguan Mu was startled by his uncle's words. Of course, he knew what a space artifact meant. Greed suddenly appeared on his face. After all, a space artifact was very tempting. Even a warrior of the divine path couldn't resist it, let alone him. It seems that the space artifact this person has is very powerful. If our family can get this artifact, we'll be like a tiger that has grown wings. Uncle, if this person keeps using the space artifact to disappear, we won't be able to catch him, let alone get the space artifact. Shangguan Tu seemed to be prepared for this. Shangguan Tu sneered and said coldly, Big Brother is in seclusion, but I've already informed the elders. Look at the thing in my hand. Looking at the thing in his hand, Shangguan Mu was a little shocked. Then, he laughed. With this thing, it was almost impossible for the other party to leave. Longao, who was running quickly, of course, sensed that someone had locked onto his aura. Without a doubt, he only had one enemy in the Imperial City, and that was the Shangguan family. With the aura of a purple-grade Great Emperor, Longao was almost certain that the expert sent by the Shangguan family this time was Shangguan Tu. Although he had the Dragon Seal space and could choose to disappear at any time, The other party was still a purple-grade Great Emperor. Moreover, it was time for him to enter the Martial Artists Alliance. There was no need for him to find trouble. Therefore, Longao didn't plan to go head-on with the Shangguan family. Longao didn't want to find trouble, but the Shangguan family wouldn't give up so easily. Shangguan too led dozens of great emperors, including Shangguan Mu, and chased after him. It wasn't clear whether it was intentional or not, but the two parties arrived at the garbage dump in a short while. P.S. 8 o'clock. Please work hard. Little 9 thanks. Chapter 926. There was no way out. Longao turned around and looked coldly at the dozens of people in front of him. Black Wolf, I'd like to see how you're going to disappear in front of me today. Is that so? Longao didn't put the dozens of people in his eyes. So what if they're purple-grade great emperors? With the dragon seal space, he could disappear at any time. Not to mention purple-grade great emperors, even divine path martial artists couldn't stop him. This was the power of the dragon seal space. Longao didn't want to waste any more time with them and was about to enter the dragon seal space. However, the result shocked Longao. Couldn't enter the dragon seal space? What the hell happened? Longao was a little surprised because he had only been unable to enter the dragon seal space a few times. He didn't think that a few great emperors would be able to stop him from entering the dragon seal space. Black Wolf, are you surprised? Don't think that you're invincible just because you have a spatial divine tool. As he spoke, Shangguan Tu took out a glass ball the size of an eyeball. There seemed to be a drop of blood in it. Longao wasn't a fool. He knew that the reason why he couldn't enter the dragon seal space was because of the glass ball in Shangguan Tu's hand. If you don't mind, I'd like to know what the glass ball in your hand is. Who do you think you are to want to know? Shangguan Tu waved his hand and sneered, Black Wolf, cut the crap. As long as you're willing to hand over the spatial divine tool, I'll let you go. How about it? Spatial divine tool? In an instant, Longao knew what Shangguan Tu meant. It seemed that everyone thought that he had a spatial divine tool after seeing his sudden disappearance. However, that was the truth. Strictly speaking, the dragon seal space was indeed a spatial divine tool. Moreover, he had another spatial divine tool in his hand, the so-called spacetime wheel. Idiot! Longao's body suddenly disappeared. Shangguan Tu and the others were shocked. They didn't know what happened. How could he disappear under the Qilin blood? Did the power of the Qilin blood disappear? Impossible. The drop of Qilin blood in Shangguan Tu's hand was the blood of a spatial Qilin. It was specialized in restraining spatial divine artifacts. It was precisely because of this that Shangguan Tu had brought the Qilin blood to deal with Black Wolf. But now, he suddenly found that the Qilin blood was completely useless, causing Shangguan Tu and the others to think that the Qilin blood was useless. Just when everyone was extremely puzzled and did not know what to do, Longao's body suddenly appeared. He sneered. Shangguan Tu, why don't you give me this drop of Qilin blood? Perhaps he was frightened, but before Shangguan Tu could figure out what was going on, Longao had already rushed over, ready to snatch the Qilin blood from his hands. Even if Longao had the spatial teleportation and had broken through to the Crimson-grade Great Emperor realm, it was almost impossible for him to snatch the Qilin blood from a purple-grade Great Emperor. However, Longao attacked from both sides. You want to snatch the Qilin blood? Shangguan Tu simply wanted to laugh crazily when he saw the other party snatching the Qilin blood from his hands. His face was filled with disdain and contempt. Although the other party could use a spatial divine artifact to disappear, he was still a Crimson-grade Great Emperor martial artist. From the beginning to the end, Shangguan Tu didn't take the other party seriously. It was as if the other party was purposely moving around. But in the next second, Shangguan Tu looked at his hands dumbly. From the beginning to the end, he didn't know how the other party had done it. Black Wolf, hand over the Qilin blood. Lost the Qilin blood? A mere Crimson-grade Great Emperor actually snatched the Qilin blood from the hands of a purple-grade Great Emperor martial artist. Everyone around didn't know how the Black Wolf had done it, but it was a great humiliation for them. Shrugging helplessly, Longao said with an innocent face, Are you out of your mind? When did I take your Chilean blood? Shangguan too was speechless because he was almost certain that the Black Wolf hadn't snatched the Chilean blood from his hands. If it wasn't the Black Wolf, then who could it be? Everyone looked at each other. They didn't know where the Chilean blood in their boss hands had gone. Shangguan too, I don't have time to play with you here. Goodbye. Without giving anyone a chance, Longao's body suddenly disappeared. Uncle, now that the Chilean blood is lost, how are we going to explain it to Uncle when we go back? Things were getting troublesome. The Chilean blood was the most precious treasure of the Shangguan clan. If it wasn't to deal with the Black Wolf, the clan wouldn't have used the Chilean blood. Shangguan Tu's face was extremely gloomy and ugly. After all, the Chilean blood was lost. Even if he was the younger brother of the clan head, he wouldn't be able to deal with the consequences. Shangguan Tu knew very well what losing the Chilean blood meant. Black Wolf, don't think that you've won. I'll definitely make you regret it. Inside the dragon seal space, Longao looked at the glass ball in his hand and seemed to be very surprised. He didn't expect that this small glass ball would actually contain a drop of Chilean blood. Moreover, it could even imprison him into the dragon seal space. Long Fu, what happened just now? Long Fu also had a helpless expression and said, Master, the drop of Chilean blood in your hand isn't ordinary. Not only is it the blood of a spatial Chilean, but it also fused with the origin energy. That's why it could imprison you into the dragon seal space. Fortunately, there was the little guy's help. Otherwise, Master, you'd be in big trouble this time. Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao was shocked. So this drop of blood had such an origin. He knew very well what it meant when the Chilean blood fused with the origin energy. As for the little guy, Longao looked at the little mouse. This time, he was able to successfully seize the drop of Chilean blood from Shangguan Tu's hands. Without the little guy, he wouldn't have been able to do this. Adding on the little guy's speed, even in the end, Shangguan Tu hadn't been able to figure out what had happened. He had no choice but to admit that the little guy's speed was too fast. Even his eyes couldn't keep up with it. Longao also realized that after the little guy had absorbed the blood pool's energy, its overall strength and speed had undergone a heaven-toppling increase. If it had been based on the little guy's previous speed, it wouldn't have been easy to take the Chilean blood from Shangguan Tu Long Fu. How does the Chilean blood absorb the origin energy? Longao was very clear that the martial heaven continent's origin energy was controlled by the heavenly Taos. Since that was the case, how could the Chilean blood absorb the origin energy? Was there some trick to it? Author's note: today, I should be able to maintain my rank around 30. Tomorrow, I'll have at least 5 chapters. If I have 100 votes tomorrow, Little 9 will continue to add 5 chapters, which is 10 chapters. I hope everyone will vote. Little 9 will also work hard. Chapter 927. Master, I believe you've already guessed it. Could it be true? Master, the origin energy of the Sky Martial continent is only controlled by Tian Dao, so this drop of Chilean blood was refined by Tian Dao. But I don't know why it's here. As expected. Longao had already guessed that this drop of refined Chilean blood was most likely refined by the heavenly Tao. As for why this drop of blood appeared in the Shangguan clan, he had no idea. The Chilean clan was one of the strongest clans in the world. Their strength was comparable to the Dragon clan and the Phoenix clan. There were many clans in the Chilean clan. Among them, the spatial Chilean was the strongest. Master, this drop of Chilean blood can stabilize your Emperor realm. Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao was overjoyed. Previously, he had forcefully broken through to the Emperor realm, but it was not easy to completely stabilize his realm. Longao had tried so many times, but he had not succeeded in stabilizing his realm. Long Fu, what should I do? Master. In the following time, with Long Fu's help and the Chilean blood, Longao began to stabilize his Emperor realm. 3 days later, Longao left the Dragon Seal space. This time, he did not hesitate and went straight to the Martial Artists Alliance. He was a little excited at the thought of meeting Yu Yin. The Martial Artists Alliance was one of the 10 forces. Its foundation and strength were superb. The Martial Artists Alliance was located in the deepest part of the Imperial City. Under normal circumstances, as long as one was not a disciple of the Martial Artists Alliance, one could not step into the territory of the Martial Artists Alliance. Once the Martial Artists Alliance found out, it was not impossible for them to be killed. As soon as Longao stepped into the territory of the Martial Artists Alliance, he was stopped by two disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance. The two of them looked arrogantly at the young man in front of them and asked coldly, "Who are you?" "Branch Vice Hall Master, winner of this year's Alliance competition. Today, I'm here to report to the Martial Artists Alliance." The Deputy Hall Leader might be in existence below tens of thousands of people in the Martial Artists Alliance, but in the Martial Artists Alliance, the status of the Deputy Hall Leader was different. Disdain and contempt were evident on their faces. "So you're from the Blackwater City branch? The higher-ups told me that if I want to join the Martial Artists Alliance, I have to pay 100,000 crystal stones." Grass. Longao cursed in his heart. He was not a fool. He knew that the two people in front of him were just talking nonsense. Why would the Martial Artists Alliance want 100,000 crystals? It was truly frightening. In the end, it was because their status had not reached such a level. Even ordinary disciples looked down on them. Longao did not have 100,000 crystal stones on him. Even if he had 100,000 crystal stones, he would not give them to the two. "I'll ask my superiors later. If I really have to hand over 100,000 crystal stones, I'll hand it over. Now, please step aside." Seeing that the young man was about to barge in, the two of them were shocked. The higher-ups did not give them such an order, so the two of them did not dare to leak this information. Otherwise, they would only have one consequence, which was to be punished. "Young man, you're very arrogant. Step aside." Longao's voice had gradually cooled down. He did not want to cause trouble, but he was never afraid of trouble. The two of them snorted. Although they knew that they were no match for the young man, they were confident that the young man would not dare to make a move here. After all, similar things had happened before. Without exception, anyone who wanted to join the Martial Artists Alliance, no matter if they were ordinary disciples or Deputy Hall Leaders, would hand over their crystal stones obediently. This was the real reason why the two of them were so confident. Before the two of them could make a move, Longao's figure had already spun and directly punched the two of them out. Longao did not kill them. After all, this was the Martial Artists Alliance. If he acted rashly, there would only be one outcome, which was that the Martial Artists Alliance would deal with him, and he would not have the chance to see Yu Yin. It was still the same. The main purpose of joining the Martial Artists Alliance this time was to see Yu Yin. Therefore, for Yu Yin, Longao could endure anything. The two of them looked at each other and saw a trace of fear in each other's eyes. The young man just now was very powerful. The two of them were almost certain that if the young man wanted to, he could kill them in a matter of minutes. "What should we do? What can we do? We can only endure it. This young man's strength is right there. Do you want to die? Mate, even if we are no match for him, we can kill him with a borrowed knife." Hearing that, the two of them immediately got up and walked far away. The Martial Artists Alliance was located in the deepest part of the Imperial City. It was extremely magnificent. The headquarters of the Martial Artists Alliance could only be described with one word: magnificent. Palaces were built side by side. They were of different heights, but the lowest building was at least 3 stories high. At first glance, it was densely packed. The Imperial City was magnificent enough. However, in front of the headquarters of the Martial Artists Alliance, the Imperial City was just child's play. Longao stared at the center of all the buildings, which was the tallest one. At first glance, there were at least 100 stories. It was as if the entire building was connected to the sky and covered by clouds. In other words, the headquarters of the Martial Artists Alliance looked like it was sitting on top of the clouds from afar. According to the information he received, Longao knew that with his current status, he was not qualified to enter the tallest building. He could only report to the sub-palace now. Although he used to be the Deputy Hall Chief of Blackwater City, he could only be a core disciple after entering the Martial Artists Alliance. He had a lot less experience. Under normal circumstances, ordinary people could only be outer disciples after entering the Martial Artists Alliance. Unless their strength reached a certain level or they made contributions, they could become inner disciples. After that, they could become core disciples. The core disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance were usually focused on training by the Martial Artists Alliance. However, everyone knew that in the Martial Artists Alliance, especially among the core disciples, the competition was extremely cruel. This was because the Martial Artists Alliance did not care about your life or death. Core disciples could challenge each other. As long as they agreed, their lives and deaths were up to fate. According to the Martial Artists Alliance, only the disciples who survived the competition were worthy of the Alliance's focus. Longao came to a side hall and found the steward. He went straight to the point and revealed his identity. A middle-aged man sat behind the table. He raised his head lazily and glanced at Black Wolf. He said impatiently, "The Martial Artists Alliance tournament has ended so long ago. Why are you reporting so late? It's my first time in the Imperial City. I couldn't find it before, so I was delayed. P.S. All 10 chapters have been delivered. I hope everyone votes tomorrow. If there are 100 monthly votes, Xiaoju will continue with 10 chapters." Chapter 928. The middle-aged man seemed to understand. After all, the Tianwu continent was too big. It would take a long time to travel from Blackwater City to the Imperial City. Black Wolf, although your actions are pardonable, the Alliance has its own rules. Do you understand? Yes. Since that's the case, you can become an inner disciple of the Alliance. I hope you can cultivate well and become a core disciple as soon as possible. Then, the Alliance will train you. Inner disciple? Longao was not surprised by the Alliance's arrangement. Because no matter if it was an inner disciple or a core disciple, they were all the same to him. Thank you. Longao did not say anything more. He turned around and left. No matter what, he only had one purpose in joining the Martial Artists Alliance, and that was to see Yu Yin. As soon as Longao left, Lu Tianxi suddenly appeared. "Brother Lu, it's done." Lu Tianxi nodded with a sinister smile and said, "Good. I'll do what I promised you." The middle-aged man seemed to be curious. He said, "Brother Lu, if you want him dead, we have countless ways. Why do you want him to become an inner disciple now? Ask what you need to ask." Lu Tianxi seemed to be unhappy. He looked at the disappearing figure and said to himself, "Black Wolf, I'd like to see how you can leave the Alliance alive." The Martial Artists Alliance was divided into 8 branches. They were the Eastern Alliance, the Western Alliance, the Southern Alliance, the Northern Alliance, the Northeastern Alliance, the Northwestern Alliance, the Southeastern Alliance, and the Southwestern Alliance. However, Longao was the winner of the Alliance competition. Although he was only an inner disciple, he would still be heavily trained by the Alliance. That was without a doubt. No matter what, Longao was the Deputy Hall Chief of Blackwater City. His starting point was higher than countless people in the huge martial arts field. "You are Black Wolf." Looking at the 5 or 6 people who suddenly appeared in front of him, Longao was a little unhappy, but he still nodded. He had successfully joined the Martial Artists Alliance. Unless it was a last resort, he would not easily cause trouble. Longao knew what he had to do for the sake of the big picture and to see Yu Yin. He didn't even need to ask to know why the 5 or 6 people had stopped him, because this kind of thing would happen no matter where he went. People's hearts were sinister. If you didn't have strength or a strong backer, you would be bullied and oppressed everywhere. This was reality. This was a dog-eat-dog world. In the cruel reality, no one would sympathize with you, and no one would be willing to help you. You had to rely on yourself. If you felt that you were pitiful, then you would become even more tragic. "I heard that you're awesome. Lu Yun and Lu Fei are our big brothers. Since you killed them, shouldn't we take revenge?" They were all the strongest inner court disciples. They had basically all reached the peak of Saint Emperor. With their talent and strength, they were completely capable of becoming a core disciple. However, for some reason, the 5 of them were still inner court disciples. Without a doubt. Now that the 5 of them had come looking for trouble, it was not because they had nothing better to do, but because they had been instructed by someone. It was easy to guess without guessing. With just the 2 of you? Ha ha ha, what an arrogant kid. Before the 5 people could continue to despise and look down on him, or even give them the slightest chance, Longao's body suddenly disappeared. Catcher, 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 Longao's fists moved at the same time. 1 punch for 1 person. In just a few seconds, the 5 of them had almost all fallen to the ground. It was still the same sentence. Longao didn't kill them, so they could come looking for trouble. However, in order to see Yu Yin, he had to endure it. Because of this, Longao only knocked the 5 of them unconscious. Saint Emperor martial artists had almost no resistance in front of a Crimson Emperor. This was the difference between a Saint Emperor martial artist and a Crimson Emperor martial artist. The difference was like heaven and earth. After hitting the 5 of them, Longao turned and left quickly. He already knew what had happened. Longao wasn't an idiot. Of course, he could guess. He had just entered the Martial Artists Alliance. It was impossible for someone to come looking for trouble. 5 Saint Emperors at the same time. It was too much of a coincidence. Lu Tianxi, Qian Yi. After thinking for a while, Longao finally locked onto one person. That person was Lu Tianxi, not Qian Yi. The reason was simple. If this matter was arranged by Qian Yi, then Qian Yi didn't have to do this. After all, with Qian Yi's status in the Martial Artists Alliance, he didn't need to use a few Saint Emperors to deal with him. Other than Qian Yi, there was only Lu Tianxi. Longao was almost certain that Lu Tianxi had already entered the Martial Artists Alliance and become a core disciple. Longao already had a rough understanding of the Martial Artists Alliance. The first requirement to become a core disciple was to have great talent. The second requirement was to have the strength of a great emperor martial artist. Both were indispensable. According to these 2 requirements, Longao was almost certain that Lu Tianxi could become a core disciple after entering the Martial Artists Alliance. The situation in the Martial Artists Alliance might be different from other superforces. The so-called core disciples could also become protectors, elders, or even deputy leaders. It was just that these people were all core disciples. Longao was very careful. He was very alert, ready to deal with Lu Tianxi's troubles at any time. Somewhere in the Martial Artists Alliance. Big brother, Black Wolf has already entered the alliance. I only hope that you can help me. No matter what, you have to kill him. Mai Kai lowered his head and pondered. His face was very pale. This was because Black Wolf still hadn't found his little mouse. This had always been Mai Kai's worry. Of course, Mai Kai already knew that Black Wolf had come to the Martial Artists Alliance. However, he didn't do anything immediately. No matter what, Black Wolf was the winner of the alliance and was valued by the higher-ups. If the alliance knew that he was going to kill Black Wolf, there would be a lot of trouble. Lu Tianxi, you should know the rules of the alliance. I've already received news that although Black Wolf is listed as an inner disciple, he will soon become a core disciple. If the alliance knows that it was us who did this, think about how the alliance will deal with us. Of course, Lu Tianxi knew what Mai Kai was talking about. However, when he thought about how Black Wolf had entered the alliance openly, he couldn't accept that he could only watch but couldn't do anything. Because of this, Lu Tianxi knew that he had to invite Mai Kai. After all, Mai Kai's identity and strength were not something that he could compare with. Big brother, are we just going to let him go like this? Waving his hand, Mai Kai thought for a while and said, I've just received news that Black Wolf and the Shangguan family have a big grudge against each other. P.S. Brothers, Xiao Ju asks everyone to give your monthly votes to Longao. 100 votes is not much. Xiao Ju thanks. Chapter 929. Shangguan Family. Although Lu Tianxi had just joined the Martial Artists Alliance, he was still familiar with the situation in the Imperial City. The real overlord of the Imperial City was the Martial Artists Alliance. But under normal circumstances, the Martial Artists Alliance wouldn't meddle in the affairs of the Imperial City. In other words, There were only 4 families in charge of the imperial city. They were the Shangguan family, the Ning family, the Sohe family, and the Nangong family. Big brother, you want to use the Shangguan family to deal with Black Wolf? Lu Tianxi didn't doubt the strength of the Shangguan family. Not to mention a small Black Wolf, even a supreme Dao warrior wouldn't dare to offend the Shangguan family. If I'm not wrong, the Shangguan family is afraid of the Martial Artists Alliance, so they don't dare to act recklessly. Lu Tianxi was a little surprised. But then he understood. After all, the Martial Artists Alliance was here. Unless the Shangguan family was stupid, they wouldn't offend the alliance easily. It was still the same sentence. The overlord of the imperial city was the Martial Artists Alliance, not the Shangguan family. In other words, the Shangguan family was just a joke in front of the Martial Artists Alliance. Big brother, what should we do? Lu Tianxi was helpless. But he had decided that no matter what happened, Black Wolf had to die. Even if the 5 of them helped him, he would act alone. Just as Longao had guessed. With Lu Tianxi's status and strength, he could easily join the Martial Artists Alliance and become a core disciple. He didn't know what would happen in the future. Just now, Black Wolf's status was far from his. You just joined the alliance, so there are some things you don't know. The Shangguan family is not as simple as it looks. Lu Tianxi really didn't know about the Martial Artists Alliance and the 4 families. Was there something fishy? Big brother, is it the Shangguan family? You guessed right. The Shangguan family is very powerful, and they have a deputy chief. F*** Lu Tianxi cursed in his heart. Of course, he knew what a deputy chief meant. No wonder my Kai was so serious. It turned out that the Shangguan family had such a powerful deputy chief. Lu Tianxi was no fool. He understood what my Kai meant. He wanted to use the Shangguan clan and the Deputy Alliance Master's power to deal with Black Wolf. Although it was making a mountain out of a molehill, it seemed that he had no choice but to do so given the current situation. Lu Tianxi, keep an eye on Black Wolf. Leave the rest to me. Got it. Longao didn't know about Black Wolf and my Kai's scheme, but he had already guessed that since Lu Tianxi had joined the Martial Artists Alliance, there was no doubt that Lu Tianxi would deal with him. Martial Artists Alliance. Within the Emperor City. Yu Yin's expression was very ugly, because she really did not expect that her master would go back on his words. Her cultivation had clearly broken through to the Divine Path realm, but she still could not leave the Martial Artists Alliance. Yu Yin knew very well that she could not leave the Martial Artists Alliance. Otherwise, if her master wanted to deal with Longao's strength, he would have no chance to fight back. Senior sister, do you miss him? Tong Linga sighed deeply in her heart. From the beginning to the end, she did not expect that she would fall in love with her senior sister's lover. She did not dare to tell her senior sister about this, because in Tong Linga's opinion, it was not very kind of her to do so. Well, Linga, what do you think master means? Why won't he let me go see him? Looking at her senior sister beside her, Tong Linga shrugged helplessly and said with a smile, it's actually very simple. With your talent and physique, it's almost certain that you will enter the supreme divine path in the future. What does me going to see him have to do with me entering the supreme divine path? Of course it does. Senior sister, you are now the favorite of master and the alliance. The faster your talent and cultivation speed, the more the alliance and master will value you. If I'm not wrong, master will probably never let you see him. Hearing Linga's words, Yu Yin suddenly stopped. Is what you said true? I guessed. Guessed? If even her junior sister guessed, Yu Yin was not a fool. Of course, she knew that the meaning was not much different. It seemed that the alliance and master did not want her to see Longao again. Everything was a lie. If she could not see him, then why did she do this? Senior sister, if you can break through to the supreme divine path, then even the alliance and senior sister will not be able to restrict you. But now, looking at her junior sister who was hesitating to speak, Yu Yin seemed to be a little impatient and asked, why are you so impatient? Senior sister, I'm just guessing. Master and the alliance seem to want to find you a new man. At this point, Tong Linga did not continue speaking, but the meaning in her words was very clear. In fact, Anyone with a discerning eye could tell at a glance. Even in the Martial Artists Alliance, a supreme divine path martial artist was definitely a high and mighty existence. Even so, Yu Yin did not have the right to speak. She was even restricted. The reason was simple. If there was anything to blame, it was because Yu Yin was too talented and cultivated too quickly. At this moment, Yu Yin was like the flesh of the Alliance and the Hades. How could they choose to let her go? If she did not think about it, she would not know. After thinking about it carefully, Yu Yin realized that all of this was actually a lie. Master did not want her to see Longao from beginning to end. It was just a lie to deceive her. Senior sister, I want to tell you something, but you have to promise me that you must be calm and not be impulsive. She seemed to be a little curious. Usually, Linga had a mischievous appearance, but now, Linga seemed to have changed into another person. Nodding, Yu Yin promised, "Don't worry, senior sister will not act rashly." After thinking about it, Tong Linga still looked like she wanted to say something but stopped. "Linga, if you have something to say, just say it." "Senior sister, I don't want to see you unhappy. Let me tell you a secret now. Longao has already entered the Imperial City. Not only that, he has also entered the Martial Artists Alliance and become an inner disciple of the Martial Artists Alliance. It is said that the higher-ups have already begun to pay attention to him. Is this true?" Hearing the news brought by Linga, Yu Yin's heart was turned upside down. She could not calm down for a long time because she never thought that Longao would come to the Imperial City at this time and enter the Martial Artists Alliance. Yu Yin did not need to guess. She had already guessed that Longao's purpose in coming here was definitely for her. "Senior sister, Longao changed his name to Black Wolf. I believe that other than you and me, no one else can recognize Longao. Therefore, senior sister, you must not act rashly. Once the Alliance and Master find out about Longao's true identity, Longao will definitely die. P.S. Little Nine should sleep first. Please vote. Again, if there are 100 monthly votes today, 10 chapters will explode." Chapter 930. Black Wolf. Yu Yin wasn't a fool. She knew what it would mean if Longao's identity was exposed. "Senior sister, it seems like Longao is here for you." Something was wrong. "Linga, I want to ask you something. I hope you can answer me honestly. What do you think?" Tong Linga didn't know what her senior sister wanted to ask, but she still nodded. In the Martial Artists Alliance, the two of them had a good relationship. Otherwise, Tong Linga wouldn't be so nervous. "Linga, do you like Longao?" Tong Linga was shocked by her senior sister's words. It was easy to tell if a woman liked a man. Moreover, Tong Linga wasn't someone who liked to pretend. Seeing Linga's shocked expression, Yu Yin knew that her guess was right. Yu Yin didn't get angry. She seemed very calm. "Senior sister, listen to me." Yu Yin waved her hand and said with a smile, "Linga, there's nothing wrong with liking someone. Although Longao is my lover, I don't have the right to stop others from liking Longao. What do you think?" Tong Linga didn't know what to say. It was as if she had done something wrong. "Senior sister, I'm sorry. I couldn't control myself." Looking at her junior sister, Yu Yin sighed deeply in her heart. She said gently, "Linga, I really don't blame you. I know how it feels to like someone." Yu Yin didn't know what to say. She felt very conflicted. On one hand, she didn't want to hurt her junior sister. On the other hand, she didn't want them to be together. However, Yu Yin knew that some things would happen eventually. Sometimes, when fate arrived, no one could stop it. As if she didn't want to continue thinking about this problem, Linga asked, "Senior sister, what do you plan to do next?" How could Yu Yin not know what Tong Linga was thinking? After pondering for a while, Yu Yin said, "You're right. At this time, we can't let anyone know Longao's identity. I need to think about it first." Tong Linga and Yu Yin both had their own thoughts. They didn't seem to be in the mood to continue shopping. They turned around and returned to the Martial Artists Alliance. In the Martial Artists Alliance, Longao directly knocked the 5 people unconscious, and immediately found a relatively secluded place to start cultivating. He was very clear in his heart that with his current status, it was impossible for him to see Yu Yin. It was very difficult for the Martial Artists Alliance to find a person without knowing in advance. Without full confidence, Longao would not act rashly and alert the enemy. Black Wolf, we are really fated to meet at this time. Longao, who was cultivating with all his might, suddenly saw Lu Tianxi in front of him. He didn't feel surprised at all. He didn't know much about the Martial Artists Alliance, but it didn't mean that Lu Tianxi didn't know about the Martial Artists Alliance. Because of this, it didn't seem surprising that Lu Tianxi found him in such a short time. One had to know that the 5 people who were looking for trouble were sent by Lu Tianxi. Standing up, Longao didn't take Lu Tianxi seriously at all. In the past, when he was only a Saint Emperor or Saint Emperor, he could already severely injure Lu Tianxi. Now that his cultivation had successfully broken through to the Crimson Great Emperor level, it was more than enough to deal with Lu Tianxi. He didn't hide the contempt in his eyes. Lu Tianxi was very angry. No matter what, he was still a Crimson Great Emperor. Even so, the other party didn't take him seriously at all. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't angry. Black Wolf, cut the crap. The grudge between you and me needs to be settled today. What do you want? Since things had already reached this stage, Longao was very clear that this matter had to be settled as soon as possible. Otherwise, there would be countless troubles in the process of him meeting Yu Yin. Life and Death Cliff, a battle of life and death. Life and Death Cliff. Battle of life and death. Longao didn't seem to know about the battle at the Life and Death Cliff that Lu Tianxi mentioned. After all, he had just joined the Martial Artists Alliance and didn't know much about the Martial Artists Alliance. However, since Lu Tianxi had already challenged him, there was no need for him to back down. I accept the challenge. He smiled. Hearing the other party agree, Lu Tianxi smiled sinisterly and said, "Tomorrow at this time, I will be waiting for you at the Life and Death Cliff. I hope you will come then." Looking at Lu Tianxi, who turned and left, Longao didn't continue cultivating. Instead, he left to find out more about the Life and Death Cliff. After asking around, Longao finally knew what the Life and Death Cliff was. Martial Artists Alliance, Life and Death Cliff. According to the rules of the Martial Artists Alliance, no matter if it was an inner disciple, a core disciple, a guardian elder, or even a deputy leader, or even the leader, they could fight in private, but they couldn't kill. However, there was one place, and that was the Life and Death Cliff. No matter who it was, once they accepted the challenge and went to the Life and Death Cliff, no one would care whether they died or not. In other words, unless it was absolutely necessary, no one would be willing to go to the Life and Death Cliff. This kind of battle of life and death might not even happen in 10 days or half a month. Longao didn't let his guard down because Lu Tianxi wasn't a fool. He was able to severely injure him before, let alone now. However, Lu Tianxi was still full of confidence, so there must be something fishy going on. However, Longao had already decided that no matter what danger there was, he had to accept the challenge. The reason was simple. The grudge between him and Lu Tianxi had to be resolved as soon as possible. Since it was going to happen sooner or later, it was better to resolve it sooner rather than later. Because of this, Longao didn't even think about it. He would definitely go to the Life and Death Cliff for the battle tomorrow. At night, the stars dotted the sky. Longao sat alone under a big tree. No one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, Longao's expression changed. Just as he was about to make a move, he cried out in surprise. Looking at the figure that suddenly appeared in front of him, he was pleasantly surprised. He said, "Ling'er, why are you here?" Although Longao's appearance had changed, his voice and aura couldn't be changed. Tong Ling'er had seen him before, so she immediately recognized that the black wolf in front of her was Longao. Tong Ling'er smiled mischievously and said, "Why can't it be me? I knew you would come, but I didn't expect you to come so quickly. Longao, I have to admit that you are really bold. Do you know where you are?" How could Longao not know what Ling'er was talking about? "I won't regret what I have decided. Is Yu Yin okay?" Hearing Longao asking about her senior sister, Linga didn't know why, but she felt a little jealous. However, she didn't show it on her face. She nodded and said, "Senior sister is okay, but she was worried when she heard the news of you coming. P.S. It's not that Xiao Ju didn't work hard, it's that everyone didn't support her. The last 2 chapters will be delivered later." Chapter 931. His heart skipped a beat. "Linga, do you mean that Yu Yin already knows that I'm here?" Longao was very curious. Under normal circumstances, if Yu Yin knew that he was here, it was impossible for her not to appear. Did something happen to Yu Yin? She seemed to be able to guess Longao's thoughts. Tonglinga smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine. But because of my master and the alliance, I can't see you now." So that was it. Longao was helpless about Yu Yin and Linga's master. Hades's strength and identity were there. Moreover, this was the Martial Artists Alliance's headquarters. Longao was almost certain that if his identity was exposed, not only him, but also Yu Yin would be in big trouble. "Linga, I want to ask you for a favor." For so many years, no matter what happened, no matter when, Longao had never begged anyone. But now, Longao was really worried about Yu Yin. Every minute delayed, Yu Yin and he would be in more trouble. "Longao, you don't have to say it. I know what you want to say. I can only tell you that I can't do it. I also hope that you won't act rashly." But before Longao could speak, Linga continued, "Longao, you just joined the Martial Artists Alliance. You don't know how powerful the Martial Artists Alliance is. Even if you see me, you can't leave the Martial Artists Alliance." Regarding the meaning in Tonglinga's words, how could Longao not know? As one of the top 10 forces, the Martial Artists Alliance was a super existence in the Tianwu continent, whether it was strength or background. Longao knew that even if he and Yu Yin left the Martial Artists Alliance, they could not escape the Martial Artists Alliance's pursuit. But would he choose to give up? "Linga, I won't act rashly. Right now, I just want to see Yu Yin." Linga stared deeply at Longao. Her heart ached bitterly, but she knew very well that she couldn't do this. Longao would always be her senior sisters. "Longao, I can only tell you that you shouldn't act recklessly. If you have the chance, you should leave the alliance first." Longao nodded and didn't say anything. As for what Linga said, he had thought about it for a long time. In the end, he decided that no matter what happened, he would enter the Martial Artists Alliance and bring Yu Yin with him. So what if it was the Martial Artists Alliance? No one could stop him from taking Yu Yin away, not even the Martial Artists Alliance. "Longao, I just heard that you've accepted Lu Tianxi's challenge and are preparing to have a battle to the death at the Life and Death Cliff tomorrow. Is that true?" Since it had already happened, Longao didn't continue to hide it. Then, Longao told Linga about the grudge between him and Lu Tianxi. After listening, Linga nodded. She seemed a little surprised and said, "Longao, do you know what kind of place the Life and Death Cliff is?" "I've already asked." The Martial Artists Alliance won't interfere no matter what happens at the Life and Death Cliff. "I've already accepted Lu Tianxi's challenge. No matter what happens, I'll go to the Life and Death Cliff tomorrow." Longao had already made up his mind about this. The grudge between him and Lu Tianxi would have to be resolved sooner or later. Since that was the case, he might as well take advantage of the Life and Death Cliff to resolve this battle. "Longao, once you go to the Alliance's Life and Death Cliff, no matter who wins or loses, one of you has to stay. Otherwise, both of you can't leave at the same time. If you fight with Lu Tianxi," although Linga didn't finish her words, the meaning in her words was very clear. Longao's cultivation was only a Saint Emperor before. In just a few months, no matter how fast his cultivation speed was, it was impossible for him to break through from a Saint Emperor to a Great Emperor. However, Lu Tianxi was a genuine Crimson Great Emperor. The difference in strength between the two was too great. In Tonglinga's opinion, with Longao's strength, once he fought with Lu Tianxi, it wouldn't bode well for him. A Saint Emperor was only a joke in front of a Great Emperor. "Linga, don't worry. I'm confident that I can defeat Lu Tianxi." Linga seemed to be very surprised. She didn't know where Longao's confidence came from. After all, the strength of a Crimson Great Emperor was far stronger than Longao. If it was an ordinary person, they definitely wouldn't accept the challenge. However, this was Longao. He knew that there was a tiger in the mountain, but he still went to the mountain. However, in the next second, Ling'er's expression changed abruptly. Her face was filled with disbelief as she exclaimed, "So your cultivation has already broken through to the Crimson Great Emperor." Crimson Great Emperor? Tong Ling'er found it hard to imagine that Longao had broken through from the Saint Emperor realm to the Great Emperor realm in just a few months. If she didn't feel it for herself, she wouldn't believe it even if she was beaten to death. With such cultivation speed, not to mention in the 9 continents continent, even in the 10 directions tripod, he would definitely be a top existence. Tong Ling'er finally understood why Longao was so confident. Longao, even if your cultivation has already reached the Crimson Great Emperor realm, there's no need for you to go to the life and death cliff with Lu Tianxi. With a wave of his hand, Longao had already decided on this matter. Ling'er, you don't have to worry about me. I've already said that I'm confident that I can win tomorrow's battle of life and death. Longao didn't want to continue dwelling on this matter. He said some other things to Ling'er before sending Tong Ling'er away. Then, he entered his cultivation state. If it was a battle under normal circumstances, Longao wouldn't have the slightest bit of worry. However, the problem now was that he didn't know what Lu Tianxi was up to. It was easy to guess. If Lu Tianxi wasn't hiding something, why would he choose to have a battle of life and death with him at the life and death cliff? It was better to be safe. The news of Black Wolf and Lu Tianxi's battle was spread by someone. Soon, many people in the Martial Artists Alliance knew about it. A battle of life and death at the life and death cliff was rarely seen under normal circumstances. After all, there would always be people who would fall at the life and death cliff every time there was a battle of life and death. In this world, no matter where one went, there would always be people who liked to watch a show. However, the battle of life and death between Black Wolf and Lu Tianxi obviously didn't have much influence. No matter what, both of them came from outside and weren't inner and core disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance. Even so, there were still hundreds of people watching at the life and death cliff. It was a quiet night. The next morning, Longao and Lu Tianxi both rushed to the life and death cliff. Before the two of them arrived, there was already a sea of people in front of the life and death cliff. Every one of them was an inner disciple. As for core disciples, there weren't many of them, only about 1/10 of them. In other words, among the hundreds of people, there were only 10 core disciples, and they were the weakest core disciples. On the life and death cliff, there were stone walls on both sides and a black cliff on the east side. There was only one exit. If 2 people were to have a battle of life and death, regardless of life and death, only one person could leave the life and death cliff alive. As for the other person, he had to stay on the life and death cliff. Chapter 932. Cliff of Life and Death. The Martial Artists Alliance would not interfere regardless of life and death. Other than Longao and Lu Tianxi, there was no one else on the Cliff of Life and Death. No matter what, this was a life and death battle between the two of them. If it wasn't for the fact that they were bored, no one would be willing to interfere. Moreover, the Martial Artists Alliance had a rule that once the two of them entered the Cliff of Life and Death, no one was allowed to interfere. Otherwise, they would be killed immediately. In the crowd, Mai Kai looked at Black Wolf coldly. For some reason, he couldn't make a move yet. However, the grudge between him and Black Wolf had been settled. Black Wolf, I have to admire your courage. You actually dared to come. He snorted coldly. Longao's face was full of disdain. He said coldly, cut the crap. If you want to fight, then fight. If not, jump off the cliff. Good, good, good. After saying good 3 times, Lu Tianxi's body had already dashed out in the next second. Before he arrived, his palms were already moving, waving back and forth. Palm shadows filled the sky. It was impossible to see his palms. Longao didn't dare to be careless. He didn't use spatial teleportation. There were many martial artists alliance disciples watching this battle at the cliff of life and death. If the martial artists alliance knew that he had a trump card, then he would be in endless trouble. It wouldn't be easy to kill Lu Tianxi without using his trump card. Both of his fists smashed out fiercely. Fist shadows filled the sky. Fist shadows were everywhere. Two fists and two palms collided fiercely. With a boom, both of them took 3 steps back. Both of them looked at each other coldly. They both took a deep breath. Then, both of them charged towards each other at the same time. In the blink of an eye, both of them were already engaged in a fierce battle. Fist shadows and palm shadows were everywhere. It was impossible to tell who was who. Both of them were crimson-grade great emperors. Their battle skills had already reached the level of core disciples. Because of this, the spectators were all extremely nervous. No one expected the battle between the two to be so exciting. Emperor Dragon's 9 kills. Unable to use other trump cards, Longao could only use the Emperor Dragon 9 fatal blows. However, for safety's sake, Longao did not use the Godslayer sword. No matter what, the legend of the Godslayer sword was there for all to see. It was better to be safe than sorry. If someone were to recognize the Godslayer sword, he would be in big trouble. This was the first time Longao had tried to fuse the Emperor Dragon's 9 kills into his fists. As for how powerful it was still unknown. The Emperor Dragon's 9 fatal slashes were the Emperor Dragon's Raging Waves, Emperor Dragon's Heaven Burial, Emperor Dragon's Strangulation, Emperor Dragon's Dominance, Emperor Dragon's Collapse, Emperor Dragon's Meteor Explosion, Emperor Dragon's Heart Devour, and Emperor Dragon's Destruction of the Heavens. Although Longao was unable to cultivate the Emperor Dragon's 9 kills to its peak, even so, when he brandished it, it was still as vigorous as a tiger. Longao forcefully suppressed the dragon's roar. This way, although the power of the Emperor Dragon's 9 kills would weaken, no one would discover the secret within. Punch after punch, the punches never stopped. Lu Tianxi was completely suppressed by Longao. If he was not careful, he would be killed by the Emperor Dragon's 9 kills. Longao had never imagined that fusing the Emperor Dragon's 9 kills into his fists would be so powerful. Take his life while he is down. Of course, Longao would not let go of such a rare opportunity. He fused his fists with the Emperor Dragon's 9 kills and attacked wildly. Domain power. Lu Tianxi had no choice but to use his domain power. However, what Lu Tianxi did not expect was that his opponent's domain power was also suppressing him. F***ck, Lu Tianxi could not understand why his opponent was always suppressing him. Black Wolf, don't think that you can defeat me. I will show you the power of the Ironback Azure Bear. Before Longao could react, a terrifying roar resounded. Following that, a gigantic Azure Bear appeared. It was the Ironback Azure Bear that Lu Tianxi had just mentioned. The Ironback Azure Bear was an orange-level great sovereign spiritual beast. Longao finally knew why Lu Tianxi was so confident. He knew that he was no match for him, but he still wanted to challenge him. It turned out that he was prepared. An orange-level great sovereign spiritual beast, the Ironback Azure Bear, was not only powerful, its physical defense was also extraordinary. Because of this, Longao did not dare to be careless. A man and a bear, left and right. At the life and death cliff. Seeing Lu Tianxi summon the Ironback Azure Bear, everyone cursed in their hearts. Lu Tianxi's method was obviously unkind. Lu Tianxi is really shameless. It's a fair battle, but he summoned the Ironback Azure Bear. No one will care about the process in a battle of life and death. They only care about the result. If Lu Tianxi wins, who will say that he's treacherous? Hearing this, everyone nodded with an expression of agreement. Among the crowd, seeing Lu Tianxi summon an orange-level great sovereign spiritual beast, the Ironback Azure Bear, Tonglinga's face instantly turned gloomy. She did not expect Lu Tianxi to be so shameless. Although she was worried, Tonglinga did not make a move in the end. The reason was simple. The Martial Artists Alliance had a clear rule. No one was allowed to interfere in the battle of life and death at the life and death cliff. Not only him, even his master, Hades, was not allowed to interfere. Lu Tianxi and the Ironback Azure Bear combined their strength. Senior sister, what should we do? It turned out that Yu Yin had been waiting at the life and death cliff for a long time. When Yu Yin saw Longao for the first time, her whole body trembled. However, her rationality told her that she must not acknowledge Longao. Otherwise, Longao would be in big trouble. Yu Yin's whole body was covered in black. No one could recognize her. Otherwise, Yu Yin's appearance would definitely cause a commotion. However, ever since Yu Yin was brought back to the Martial Artists Alliance, it had caused a huge commotion. According to the legends, Yu Yin had a physique that only appeared once in 10,000 years. In just a few years, she had broken through to the divine realm from an insignificant post-liminary realm warrior. What kind of concept was that? Moreover, Yu Yin's beauty could definitely be ranked in the top 3 even in the Martial Artists Alliance. Therefore, the men who pursued Yu Yin were as numerous as the hairs on a cow. Of course, Yu Yin knew what it meant when Lu Tianxi suddenly summoned the Ironback Azure Bear. However, the Martial Artists Alliance had a rule, and she could not kill Longao. Therefore, she would not make a move easily until the last moment. Moreover, from the beginning to the end, Yu Yin trusted Longao very much. Perhaps no one knew Longao's character better than she did. Without full confidence, Longao would not accept the challenge. Therefore, Yu Yin shook her head and said, "Let's wait and see. I choose to believe him." Believe? Tong Linga smiled bitterly. She also wanted to choose to believe, but when she saw the Ironback Azure Bear, she felt powerless. Chapter 933. At the Cliff of Life and Death. Longao was fighting 1 against 2 and was gradually losing. If Longao used all kinds of trump cards, he might not lose. But the problem now was that he couldn't use spatial teleportation or the god-slaying sword. The only thing he could do was to integrate the Emperor Dragon 9 kills into his fists and continuously attack the man and the beast. As the battle continued to escalate, Longao's face became more and more ugly. If he fought Lu Tianxi alone, Longao was confident that he could kill Lu Tianxi within 10 moves. But now, the Ironback Blue Bear was still an orange-grade Great Sovereign Spirit Beast. Just the power of its realm alone was not something a first-grade realm could resist. Fighting 1 against 2, Longao was hit hard by Lu Tianxi's palm. Tong Ling-er and Yu Yin were both shocked. Seeing that Longao had forcefully withstood it, the two of them heaved a sigh of relief. But even so, they became more and more worried. As the saying goes, the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. In this world where strength was respected, no one would care about the process, only the result. In other words, no matter how despicable and shameless Lu Tianxi was, as long as Lu Tianxi won in the end, no one would care about this matter. This was the reality. Longao knew very well that if he continued to fight, he would die. Did he have to use spatial teleportation, the god-slaying sword, the chaos stone tablet, etc.? Unless it was a last resort, he absolutely could not use these trump cards. No matter what, this was the Martial Arts Alliance. There were as many experts as there were clouds in the sky. There were as many experts as there were hairs on a cow. Who knew if there were any supreme divine path experts around? Bang! There was a loud bang. Longao's fists smashed hard on the steelback blue bear's body. However, the steelback blue bear's physical defense was too strong. Even the power of Longao's arms couldn't break through the physical defense. In the end, the reason why Longao was unable to break through the steelback blue bear's physical defense was not only because of the steelback blue bear's powerful physical defense, but also because of its cultivation level. If Longao's cultivation base could successfully break through the orange-grade Great Emperor realm, it wouldn't be impossible for him to break through the steelback Azure Bear's physical defense with the power of his arms. However, in the current situation, Longao was only a crimson-grade Great Emperor, not an orange-grade Great Emperor. Both of his fists moved at the same time, and the shadows of his fists flickered. He could not even see Longao's figure. Although he didn't use spatial teleportation, Longao's speed was very fast, like a breeze blowing past. Black Wolf, I'll show you the true power of the Ironback Azure Bear. What did he mean? Longao didn't understand Lu Tianxi's words, but in the next second, Lu Tianxi laughed coldly. The other 2 ironback blue bears suddenly appeared in everyone's line of sight. 3 great emperor-level spirit beasts, ironback azure bears. What kind of concept was this? Even if it was a one-on-one battle, it would be extremely difficult for Longao to kill an ironback azure bear, let alone fighting against 4 great emperor-level spirit beasts. Things had already come to this point. Longao had naturally already guessed that Lu Tianxi's true goal was nothing more than wanting to borrow the 3 ironback azure bears to join hands and kill him. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't afraid. The strength of the 3 ironback azure bears was completely above the 3 orange-grade great emperor-level spirit beasts. When 1 man and 3 beasts joined forces, their power would instantly increase by more than 10 times. In front of the life and death cliff, when Lu Tianxi summoned the other 2 ironback azure bears, everyone cursed in their hearts. After all, Lu Tianxi's method was extremely shameless. 3 ironback azure bears. Many people were very curious as to why Lu Tianxi could have 3 orange-grade great emperor-level spirit beasts. After all, Lu Tianxi was only a crimson-grade great emperor-level spirit beasts. The difference between him and the 3 ironback azure bears was huge. Senior sister, Lu Tianxi is obviously playing dirty. If that's the case, Longao won't be able to withstand it. Yu Yin didn't say anything, but her face under her black clothes was extremely ugly. She was also very worried. After all, the opponent had 3 ironback azure bears. 1 against 4, even an orange-grade great emperor-level spirit beasts wouldn't be able to leave the life and death cliff alive, let alone a crimson-grade great emperor-level spirit beasts. Should she make a move? Yu Yin was very clear what it meant if she made a move. If her master was still alive and the other elders were in the dark, then the situation would be irreversible. Should she wait a little longer? Senior sister, if you can't make a move, why don't I do it? Waving her hand, Yu Yin said softly, Ling'er, don't be impatient. I believe that Longao will be able to handle it. Ah! Yu Yin's words gave Tong Ling'er a fright. After all, the opponent had 3 ironback azure bears, and Longao was only 1 person. In terms of cultivation realm, he was already inferior. If there were no accidents, it was almost impossible for Longao to defeat Lu Tianxi. What if Longao died at the life and death cliff? However, Yu Yin still didn't make a move. She didn't know why, but Yu Yin had always believed in Longao. This was the meaning of trust. The 3 ironback azure bears surrounded Longao. Lu Tianxi sneered and looked coldly at the besieged black wolf. This battle at the life and death cliff was a trap set up by Lu Tianxi and Mai Shui to kill Longao in the life and death cliff. Of course, the 3 ironback azure bears didn't belong to Lu Tianxi. They were 3 emperor spirit beasts that Mai Kai had found. As a yellow-grade great sovereign, it was a piece of cake for Mai Kai to find 3 orange-grade great sovereign spirit beasts. Mai Kai's intention of not making a move was clear. If something happened, Lu Tianxi would be the scapegoat. Lu Tianxi wasn't a fool, of course, he knew what Mai Kai meant. But what could he do? Even though he knew, he had to do it. He knew that things had already reached this stage. Even if he didn't make a move, not only would he fail to kill Black Wolf, but he would also offend Mai Kai. Although Mai Kai was only a consecrator of the Martial Artists Alliance, his identity and strength couldn't be underestimated. Now that he was in the Martial Artists Alliance, he would have to rely on Mai Kai for many things in the future. Therefore, he could offend anyone but Mai Kai. However, the reason why Lu Tianxi was willing to be the scapegoat was because he was full of confidence. After all, Mai Kai had found 3 orange-grade great sovereign spirit beasts for him. He didn't believe that Black Wolf could defeat him in a 1 versus 3 battle. Therefore, the life and death battle at the life and death cliff took place. Although Lu Tianxi was a little shameless in this battle, in this real world, no one cared about the process. Some of the onlookers had already left. It was almost certain that Black Wolf wouldn't be able to kill the 3 ironback azure bears by himself. The result was simple. Black Wolf would be besieged to death. Whether it was Tong Ling'er or Yu Yin, they were ready to make a move at any time. Although they had full confidence in Longao, they had to be careful. If something happened to Longao, they would have to make a move. Author's note: today's small matter, 3 chapters, tomorrow's explosion, 5 chapters. Chapter 934. The Martial Artists Alliance had made it clear that no matter what happened, no one was allowed to interfere with the matters of the life and death cliff. However, Yu Yin and Ling'er had decided that if anything happened to Longao, they would ignore the Martial Artists Alliance. Life and Death Cliff. The battle of life and death had reached its climax. Longao was gradually unable to hold on. After much consideration, Longao decided to use the Annihilation Divine Bow. There were 3 reasons why he chose the Annihilation Divine Bow. The first reason was that the Annihilation Divine Bow was already damaged. Normal people wouldn't be able to tell what was different about it. The second reason was that ever since Longao obtained the Annihilation Divine Bow, he hadn't truly witnessed its power. He would take this opportunity to use the Annihilation Divine Bow. The third reason was that he had already sensed that Tong Linga was in front of the life and death cliff. Even if the Annihilation Divine Bow drained all his energy, he wouldn't be afraid. Things had already come to this point. Longao was very clear that in this battle, either you die or I die. After dodging the 3 ironback blue bears with a punch, Longao took out the ordinary Annihilation Divine Bow. What was the meaning of this? Seeing the broken bow that Black Wolf took out, everyone was very curious. After all, the battle had already reached this stage. Black Wolf seemed to be powerless. Ha ha ha, Black Wolf, if you're willing to kneel and beg for mercy, I'll let you go. Shameless. Shameless to the extreme. Hearing Lu Tianxi's words, everyone cursed in their hearts. Anyone could guess that Lu Tianxi wouldn't let Black Wolf go. Even if Black Wolf knelt and begged for mercy, the result would still be the same. The corner of his mouth slowly curled into a cold smile. It was this smile that caused Lu Tianxi to be stunned. Perhaps he was too afraid of his opponent. Lu Tianxi didn't know why, but his heart skipped a beat. Could it be that his opponent still had a trick up his sleeve? However, when Lu Tianxi saw the 3 orange-grade Great Emperor Ironback Blue Bears besieging the Black Wolf, the worry in his heart instantly vanished. He didn't believe that the other party could leave the Cliff of Doom alive. Lu Tianxi clearly knew that he could only win this battle. He could not afford to lose. Once he lost the battle, even if he did not die on the life and death cliff, he believed that Mai Kai would not let him go. With Mai Kai's strength, wanting to deal with him was simply an easy matter. But in the next second, Lu Tianxi's expression changed. He was frightened and even panicked. It wasn't just Lu Tianxi. Everyone else was also shocked. Everyone could clearly sense an unparalleled power erupting from Black Wolf in the distance. Strictly speaking, it was the broken bow in Black Wolf's hand that released this powerful force. What exactly happened? According to Long Fu, as long as he poured all of his energy into the silent divine bow, then with his strength as a crimson-grade Great Emperor, he would be able to draw the divine bow a little. According to the current power of the silent divine bow, he would be able to kill an orange-grade Great Emperor. It was said, but it was done. Longao was also looking forward to the power of the silent divine bow. After all, Long Fu had already said that the silent divine bow was a super-divine weapon among super-divine weapons. Its power was comparable to the blood pool. At its peak, the silent divine bow's power could even destroy the heavens and earth. Borrowing the strength of his entire body, Longao slowly began to draw the bow. Just as expected. The silent divine bow was simply too difficult to draw. Even if he used all of his strength, Longao realized that he could only draw the bow less than 1%. What kind of concept was this? The length of a thumb. Even so, Longao could clearly feel the terrifying aura emitted by the silent divine bow. Just how powerful was it? It was simply too powerful. At this moment, Longao's heart was filled with shock. Without any hesitation, Longao continued to draw the bow. This was because he knew clearly that the longer he drew the bow, the stronger the power. The stronger the power, the higher the chance of killing the 3-headed steelback ash bear. Lu Tianxi was shocked to the extreme, and also terrified to the extreme. He could feel the terrifying power from the broken bow in Black Wolf's hand. He didn't know why, but he had a feeling that even if he had the help of the three-headed steelback ash bear, he wouldn't be a match for the other party. This seemed to be somewhat impossible, but he did have such a feeling. It was better to be safe than sorry. If he were to fail miserably, wouldn't he be dead for sure? Because of this, Lu Qianxi was prepared to leave the life and death cliff in order to be absolutely safe. Revenge was a dish best served cold. He had plenty of time. As long as he had Mai Kai's help, he could kill the Black Wolf anytime and anywhere. Why would he take this risk? Lu Qianxi was very afraid of death. Otherwise, he wouldn't have left the life and death cliff. However, the situation at this moment was completely different. Longao had already drawn the silent divine bow. His aura instantly locked onto Lu Qianxi and the three-headed steelback ash bear. That's right. Even if the steelback ash bear had reached the orange-grade Great Emperor realm, it was still locked onto by the silent divine bow. The locking of the silent divine bow wasn't an ordinary locking. Under the locking, both Lu Qianxi and the three-headed steelback ash bear couldn't move an inch. It was as if someone had nailed them to the ground. Black Wolf, how dare you? Why wouldn't I dare? Longao found it funny. It was hard for him to imagine that Lu Qianxi still dared to threaten him. Lu Qianxi was extremely terrified. He was locked onto by a mysterious force. Even if he wanted to leave, he couldn't. Until now, he still didn't know what had happened. Lu Qianxi wanted to ask for Mai Kai's help. When he wanted to speak, he was even more terrified when he realized that he couldn't even open his mouth. What happened? Lu Qianxi and the three-headed steelback ash bear couldn't move. It was as if they were locked onto by the aura. No one knew what had happened. Why would their bodies be locked onto without any reason? Seeing the reversal of the situation, Yu Yin and Ling were overjoyed. They held each other's hands nervously. This battle was a matter of life and death. Therefore, Longao couldn't lose. Lu Qianxi, this is a battle of life and death. It's not up to you. They could only see Lu Qianxi's mouth moving, but no sound came out. Everyone was shocked. Everyone was guessing whether the broken bow in Black Wolf's hand was a powerful divine weapon. Divine weapons might be something high and unattainable for ordinary people. However, for the disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance, especially the core disciples and inner disciples, even if they couldn't get their hands on a divine weapon, they had seen many of them. However, under normal circumstances, no matter if it was an inner disciple or a core disciple, there were very few people who possessed a divine artifact. Because of this, no one would have thought that a little inner disciple would actually possess such a powerful divine artifact. No wonder this person was so fearless. Chapter 935. The Silent Divine Bow. Its aura was locked onto Lu Qianxi and the three steelback blue bears. Longao sneered, ignoring the fact that the power in his body was rapidly depleting. Since things had come to this point, he had to borrow the power of the silent divine bow to kill Lu Qianxi and the three steelback blue bears. No matter how Longao pulled the bow, it was still the size of a thumb. Longao knew that with his current strength, he could only pull the bow to this extent. Since that was the case, Longao did not continue to pull the bow. He released his right hand and a ball of black light shot out. The silent divine bow did not have an arrow. In other words, the arrow that Longao used to pull the bow was formed by power. Boom! There was a loud noise. There was no suspense. Under everyone's shocked gaze, Lu Qianxi and the three steelback blue bears were enveloped by the ball of light and turned into dust in the blink of an eye. One move to kill. What did that mean? Looking at the man and the three beasts that had disappeared, everyone was completely stunned. Because until now, no one had thought that the broken bow in Black Wolf's hand would be so powerful. Longao's body was on the verge of collapsing. Using the silent divine bow by force, he could not even stand firmly. Long Fu had already said that with Longao's current strength, if he used the silent divine bow by force, all the power in his body would be instantly drained. In other words, With his current situation, not to mention a great emperor, even a Hutian realm warrior could easily kill him. This was the consequence of using the silent divine bow by force. In the battle of life and death, Black Wolf won and Lu Tianxi lost. No one had expected this result. Tong Linga seemed to be unable to bear it. Her body flashed and she had already entered the life and death cliff. She directly supported the Black Wolf, who was the so-called Longao. "Are you all right?" With a smile, Longao guessed that Tong Linga would definitely come to help him. As for Yu Yin, he did not know that Yu Yin was here. Otherwise, he would not have acted like this. "I'm fine. Help me get out of here." Although Tong Linga didn't know how Longao did it, she knew that Longao must have used some kind of secret technique to kill Lu Tianxi in one move and bring 3 orange Great Emperor spirit beasts with him. Tong Linga was definitely a celebrity in the Martial Artists Alliance. Although Tong Linga wasn't as fiery as Yu Yin, she still had a lot of suitors. All this time, Tong Linga had always rejected countless people with the same expression, no matter who they were. Because of this, everyone was shocked when they saw Yu Yin helping a person who had just joined the Martial Artists Alliance. All of a sudden, Longao had many more enemies. "What do you want?" Tong Linga's expression was extremely ugly. This was because many Martial Artists Alliance disciples blocked their way. Their intentions were clear. "Mph, Black Wolf's strength is not bad. He actually killed Lu Tianxi in one move. How about this? Since I have nothing to do, why don't we have a battle? Black Wolf, do you dare to accept the challenge?" Looking at the people in front of him challenging him, Longao was extremely depressed. He did not expect Tong Linga to be so popular in the Martial Artists Alliance. Under normal circumstances, he would not hesitate to accept the challenge. However, he was powerless now. "If you want to challenge me, I will definitely accept the challenge in 3 days." The person who challenged Tong Linga was called Tang Li. He was one of the stronger ones among the core disciples. Tang Li's strength was even above my Kai. He had reached the peak of the yellow-grade Great Emperor realm. Among Tong Linga's many pursuers, Tang Li was one of the more hardworking ones. However, Tong Linga had never said anything nice to him. Therefore, Tang Li felt extremely uncomfortable when he saw Tong Linga supporting a disciple who had just joined the Martial Artists Alliance. As for the battle just now, Tang Li had already guessed that the reason He Lang was able to kill Lu Tianxi was because of the broken bow in his hand. Moreover, the after-effects were very severe. Otherwise, He Lang would not be on the verge of collapse and even need someone to support him. One had to admit that Tang Li was a righteous person. Nodding, Tang Li said, "Okay, I will wait for you at the Cliff of Life and Death in 3 days. Tang Li, don't go too far." Waving his hand, Tang Li looked as if he had just realized something. He said, "Oh right, there is no big grudge between us. How about this, you and I will fight in 3 days. We will not be at the Cliff of Life and Death. If you lose, don't bother junior sister Tong Linga anymore." Just as Tong Linga was about to say something, Longao stopped her. "It's a deal. You can't go back on your word." With Tong Linga's support, Longao slowly left the Cliff of Life and Death and walked towards the distance. Gradually, the two of them disappeared from the crowd's sight. "He Lang, I'd like to see just how powerful the god weapon in your hand is." Other than being jealous, Tang Li also wanted to see the divine weapon in Black Wolf's hand. He had watched the battle between Black Wolf and Lu Tianxi without blinking. It would be a lie to say that he was not greedy. A mere crimson-grade Great Emperor martial artist was able to use the power of a divine weapon to kill 3 orange-grade Great Emperor spiritual beasts. This meant that the divine weapon was not to be underestimated. Tang Li could even imagine that if he could obtain this divine weapon, wouldn't it mean that with his strength as a yellow-grade Great Emperor, he could even kill a green-grade Great Emperor martial artist in one move? Thinking of this, the greed in Tang Li's eyes became more obvious. In the crowd, Yu Yin, who was shrouded in black, stared at the 2 figures that were gradually disappearing. She felt very sour in her heart because what happened just now should have been done by her, but what was the result? Yu Yin knew very well that Ling'er had really fallen in love with Longao. It seemed like this matter was going to be troublesome. Others might not know Ling'er's true identity, but how could she not know? If Longao and Ling'er really got together, the consequences would be unimaginable. What should I do? Yu Yin couldn't wait to find Longao immediately. After not seeing Longao for so long, Yu Yin felt very uncomfortable. The person she loved was right in front of her, but she could only see him. It was really torturous. Let's wait a little longer. In the end, Yu Yin chose to wait to see Longao again. Because Yu Yin knew that her identity was definitely not suitable for them to meet at this time. She was not afraid that something would happen to her, but she was worried that Longao would be implicated. No matter what, this was the martial artists' alliance. With Longao's strength, there was no way he could compete with the martial artists' alliance. The difference between the two was too big. Longao going against the martial artists' alliance was like an egg hitting a rock. Because of this, Yu Yin endured in the end. P.S. Sorry, I made a mistake just now. Tomorrow is 5 chapters, not 10. I just took a look and was shocked. Everyone, please forgive me. Chapter 936. In a secluded courtyard in the Martial Artists Alliance. With Tonglinger's status in the Martial Artists Alliance, it was easy for her to find a secluded courtyard. As soon as he stepped into the courtyard, Longao immediately sat on the ground and began to recover. After seeing the power of the godly destroyer bow, Longao was filled with emotions. The only drawback was that once he used the godly destroyer bow, his strength would be drained instantly. After a while, even a warrior in the acquired realm could easily kill him. Tonglinga stood quietly by the side. She didn't say anything and just watched. No one knew what Tonglinga was thinking, but her eyes revealed a trace of affection. "Senior sister, don't you want to go in and see Longao?" Outside the courtyard. Tonglinga was extremely unwilling to see them meet, but she was a kind girl. In the end, she was prepared to help them meet. Yu Yin shook her head and sighed helplessly. No. Longao defeated Lu Tianzi and killed 3 ironback blue bears. If I'm not mistaken, he should be noticed by the higher-ups. She was shocked. Of course, Tonglinga knew what her senior sister meant. If the higher-ups noticed, then Longao's identity would be exposed at any time. Then wouldn't Longao be in danger? "Senior sister, what should we do?" After a deep sigh, Yu Yin thought for a while and said, "Linga, you were a little reckless this time." "What do you mean?" "Longao used the godly weapon in the fight with Lu Tianzi. It attracted everyone's attention. Plus, your sudden appearance attracted even more attention. If her senior sister didn't mention it, Linga wouldn't have known." Now that she thought about it, she was a little scared. Just as her senior sister said, she shouldn't have helped Longao. If she did that, she would have made countless enemies for Longao for no reason. "Linga, it's not just Tang Li. I believe many people want to make trouble for Longao. We have to think of a way. Otherwise, Longao will have a hard time in the Martial Artists Alliance in the future." How could Tonglinga not know about this? However, Tonglinga really didn't know what to do. "Linga, senior sister wants to ask you for a favor." "Senior sister, please speak." Yu Yin looked like she wanted to say something, but in the end, she thought about it and said, "Linga, back then, the alliance leader arranged a cultivation Saint Emperor for you. I hope you can take Longao there and hide for a while. Is that okay?" Yu Yin was worried to the extreme. Not to mention the trouble in the future, just the battle 3 days later, Yu Yin did not have the slightest confidence. No matter what, Teng Li was still a peak yellow-grade Great Emperor. Even if Longao could kill an orange-grade Great Emperor spiritual beast, it was still unknown whether he could defeat a yellow-grade Great Emperor martial artist. If by any chance, Longao was really unable to defeat Teng Li, what should they do at that time? Moreover, Yu Yin knew very well that even if Longao could defeat Teng Li in 3 days, how would they deal with the endless dangers in the future? Because of this, Yu Yin thought of this method. "Senior sister, Others don't know my identity, but you definitely know. When Father gave me the Aquamoon Paradise, he told me again and again that no one, not even my master, could enter the Aquamoon Paradise. Yu Yin also had some understanding of the Aquamoon heavenly abode. Legend had it that the Alliance leader cultivated in seclusion in the Aquamoon Paradise. For some reason, the Alliance leader immediately went into seclusion to cultivate after giving the Aquamoon Paradise to Tong Linga. Under normal circumstances, he rarely appeared. Yu Yin didn't say anything because it wasn't appropriate for her to say anything. The choice was still in Linga's hands. Senior sister, I know what you mean. No matter what, I will bring Longao to the Aquamoon Paradise in 3 days. What I'm worried about is that Longao can't stay in the Aquamoon Paradise forever. What will happen after he leaves? Let's talk about this later. Tong Linga nodded. Without Longao knowing, the two had already decided on something. In the Dragon Seal space. After recovering for a whole day and night, Longao finally recovered 3/10 of his strength and could move freely. Master, how do you feel? Shaking his head helplessly, Longao said in a depressed tone, the silent divine bow is too powerful. It only took one move to kill Lu Tianzi and the 3 ironback blue bears. However, as you said before, with my current strength, if I use the silent divine bow forcefully, my strength will be instantly depleted. Regarding this, Longao felt helpless. Under normal circumstances, he couldn't use the silent divine bow. Unless there were friends present or all of them were killed in one move, he definitely couldn't use the silent divine bow. As for the power of the silent divine bow, Longao was also amazed. According to Long Fu, the power of the silent divine bow was less than 1/10,000th of its peak. Even so, he could use the silent divine bow to kill the 3 orange-grade Great Emperor spiritual beasts. It was hard to imagine how powerful the silent divine bow would be at its peak. Master, there's no need to say more about the power of the silent divine bow. I've thought about it these past few days. If there's a chance, I'll help you recover the power of the silent divine bow. Nodding his head, Longao had thought about the silent divine bow. No matter how difficult it was, he had to think of a way to get the silent divine bow. With the silent divine bow in hand, the world was mine. Long Fu, do you have a way? Leave it to me. Master, you only have one thing to do now, which is to increase your strength as fast as possible. Longao was curious. According to what Long Fu had said, he couldn't be too hasty in his cultivation. After all, there were only disadvantages and no benefits. But now, Long Fu had said something like that. What did Long Fu mean? Longao was confused and asked, Long Fu, what do you mean? Master, now that you've entered the Martial Artists Alliance, I believe that it won't be long before you come into contact with the true experts of the Qianwu continent. At that time, with your current strength, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you to move an inch. Hearing this, Longao instantly understood what Long Fu meant. Just as Long Fu had said, now that he had officially entered the Martial Artists Alliance, he could be considered to have stepped into the ranks of the superpowers of the Qianwu continent. Just the strength of a great emperor was not enough. Let alone great emperors, even divine Dao experts, even transcendent divine Dao experts, wanting to gain a foothold in the martial heaven continent was not an easy task. Longao was very clear that the Supreme God was not the peak of the martial Dao. There were only 2 people who had stepped onto the peak of the martial Dao. One was the heavenly Dao, and the other was the divine mathematician. In the end, everything depended on one's strength. Chapter 937. In the courtyard. Longao was still quietly recovering. The next day, noon. Longao opened his eyes, stood up, and stretched. Linga, thank you so much. Shaking her head, Linga said worriedly, Longao, I didn't know that I would bring you so much trouble. I hope that you won't go to the battle with Teng Li tomorrow. Teng Li? Longao already knew who the person who challenged him was. Through Ling Er's explanation, Longao was also surprised. Tang Li was considered average among the core disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance. He was a good person, but he was one of Tong Ling-er's many pursuers. Longao finally knew why Tang Li wanted to challenge him. Without a doubt, Tang Li treated him as a love rival. Who did he offend? As for Tang Li's strength, Longao was more or less afraid of him. Longao knew the difference between Tang Li and a yellow-grade Great Emperor. Even if he used the Annihilation Divine Bow, he might not be able to kill Tang Li. As for realm power, his slaughter power was only a level 3 realm. The difference between a red-grade Great Emperor and a yellow-grade Great Emperor was too big. However, he had already accepted the challenge, so Longao decided that no matter what happened, he would accept the challenge. This was a matter of principle as a martial artist. Ling-er, as a martial artist, since I have already accepted the challenge, then no matter what happens, I will go to the battle with Tang Li tomorrow. Idiot. Tong Ling-er stomped her feet in anger and said helplessly, Longao, I don't care about the battle tomorrow, but you have to come with me to a place now. What place? You will know when you come. Longao was very curious. He didn't know where Ling-er wanted to take him, but he couldn't argue with her. Helpless, he could only follow Ling-er out of the courtyard. Martial Artists Alliance, in an extremely hidden secret room. Yi, you're looking for me? Shangguan was the deputy chief of the Martial Artists Alliance. His strength was unfathomable. Not only that, Shangguan was also the ancestor of the Shangguan family. Because of him, the Shangguan family had the highest status among the 4 families. Under normal circumstances, the other 3 families did not dare to provoke the Shangguan family. Shangguan was at least 200 or 300 years old, but she looked like she was in her early 30s. If other people saw her, they would be shocked speechless. The middle-aged man in front of Shangguan was none other than the leader of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Tiandi. As the Alliance Master of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Tiandi's strength could be said to be one of the strongest in the Sky Martial continent. He could even contend against the Dragon Clan's patriarch. One could imagine how strong Tong Tiandi was. In front of the Alliance Master, Shangguan was trembling with fear. She knew very well that with her strength, she was just a joke in front of the Alliance Master. Alliance Master, a few days ago, a disciple named Black Wolf entered the Alliance. It is said that he came from Blackwater City. He is a deputy hall master. Because he was delayed entering the Alliance, he was classified as an inner disciple. Get to the point. Tong Tiandi was obviously getting impatient. His voice gradually turned cold. Tong Tiandi was also a little curious. He knew Shangguan very well. She wouldn't risk her own anger for such a small matter. Just as expected. Alliance Master, this person accepted a challenge from a Crimson-grade Great Emperor as soon as he entered the Alliance. At the Life and Death Cliff, the 2 of them had a life and death battle. Then, Shangguan told the Alliance Master everything about Longao, Lu Tianzi, and the 3 Ironback Azure Bears. From the beginning to the end, Tong Tiandi didn't react at all. This was because the life and death battle between inner disciples and core disciples happened almost every month. As the Alliance Master, if he had to worry about everything, wouldn't he be exhausted to death? Seeing the Alliance Master's face turn cold, Shangguan heart skipped a beat. Alliance Master, after the battle, Miss Ling-er went up to help Black Wolf. Not only that, Miss Ling-er also helped Black Wolf to her residence. Finally, there was a reaction. Tong Tiandi was very nervous about his daughter. He asked, what happened? Alliance Master, forgive me for being blunt. According to my guess, Miss Ling-er and Black Wolf already knew each other. Their relationship seems to be not ordinary. If it's fake, you know the consequences. His whole body trembled. Shangguan was very afraid of Tong Tiandi. Although he was the Deputy Alliance Master of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Tiandi could kill him at any time in the Martial Artists Alliance. This was the difference between the Alliance Master and the Deputy Alliance Master. Alliance Master, I can guarantee with my life that the relationship between Black Wolf and Miss Ling-er is not ordinary. I'll look into this. You can leave now. Shangguan didn't dare to say anything else and slowly left. Once they were outside, Shangguan lips slowly curled into a cold smile. He had purposely done what he did to He Lang, so that he could use the alliance leader's help to deal with He Lang. Shangguan originally wanted to kill Black Wolf directly. However, Ling Er's sudden appearance in the battle between Black Wolf and Lu Tianxi made Shangguan unsure of the relationship between Black Wolf and Lu Tianxi. Shangguan didn't want to provoke Ling Er. After all, Ling Er was the Alliance Master's only daughter. If she caused trouble for him, it could be a serious matter. However, Black Wolf stole the Qilin blood from the Shangguan family and brazenly killed the Shangguan family's disciples. If he didn't take revenge, where would his dignity go? Where would his Shangguan family's dignity go? After thinking about it, Shangguan finally decided to kill Black Wolf with a borrowed knife. Although this knife was a little big, he knew very well that as long as the Alliance Master confirmed this, Black Wolf would definitely die even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms. Black Wolf, I'd like to see how many heads you have. How dare you provoke the Shangguan family? I hope you can escape this calamity. When the time comes, I'll make you wish you were dead. Shangguan face was extremely gloomy. At first glance, one could tell that he wasn't a good person. Ever since he became the Deputy Alliance Master of the Martial Artists Alliance, he had been trying his best to develop the Shangguan family. No matter who it was, they couldn't provoke the Shangguan family. In the secret chamber, Tong Tiandi's face gradually became gloomy. He valued his daughter, Ling Er, very much. No matter who it was, they couldn't hurt Ling Er. Men. Alliance Master. Investigate this Black Wolf for me. Remember, don't act rashly and don't disturb the young lady. If there's any movement, report to me immediately. Yes. The entire secret chamber was silent. Only Tong Tiendi was there. He had reached the most critical moment of his cultivation. Tong Tiendi knew that if he could successfully break through, he would be one step closer to the peak of martial arts. P.S. The remaining 3 chapters will be updated at night. Chapter 938. Longao followed Tong Linga all the way to the west. About an hour later, the two of them arrived at a small mountain peak. There was no one around, not even an ant. The small mountain peak was surrounded by flowers and grass. It was like a paradise on earth. Ling Er, what is this place? Longao was not a fool. As soon as he stepped into this place, he could clearly sense that there was something unusual about this place. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth was 3 times stronger than other places. What did that mean? Longao, I believe you have sensed it. This place is called the Aquamoon Heavenly Abode. It is where my father cultivated in seclusion. It is also one of the forbidden areas of the Martial Artists Alliance. Father. Before Longao could ask, Ling Er had already answered, I forgot to tell you. My father is the chief of the Martial Artists Alliance. As expected. Longao had already guessed that Ling Er's identity was not simple, but he did not expect her father to be the chief of the Martial Artists Alliance. Of course, he knew what it meant to be the chief of the Martial Artists Alliance. In the Sky Martial continent, there were 10 great powers, and the 10 great powers were the peak existences. From this, it could be seen that the Alliance Masters or Sect Masters of the 10 superpowers were the 10 most powerful people in the Sky Martial continent. Whether or not Ling Er's father was the chief of the Martial Artists Alliance, Longao would treat her as a friend. Looking at the mountain peak in front of him, Longao was very surprised. He knew very well what it meant to be the chief of the Martial Artists Alliance. Why did Ling Er bring him here? Ling Er, you mean to let me cultivate here? That's right. Longao, I know I can't stop you from looking for Teng Li tomorrow. But let me tell you clearly, even if you enter the Martial Artists Alliance, if you act so recklessly, you might not even be able to see Senior Sister, let alone take her away. Regarding the meaning of Tong Linga's words, how could Longao not know? However, he had already accepted the challenge. As a martial artist, once he accepted the challenge, regardless of whether it was climbing a mountain of blades or diving into a sea of flames, He had to fight Teng Li. Longao clearly knew that he was not as strong as Teng Li, but he still decided to go. Because of this, Longao didn't say anything. Longao, the Watermoon Paradise. Back then, my father was in seclusion for 100 years. From there, he reached the peak of the martial path and became one of the strongest people in the Tianwu continent. Hearing Ling Er's words, he would be lying if he said he wasn't greedy. As for the strength of the Martial Artists Alliance's leader, Longao didn't need to guess. If he wasn't mistaken, Ling Er's father was definitely a top-notch expert, even though he hadn't reached the pinnacle of martial arts and wasn't as strong as Tian Dao or the Clairvoyant. Seclusion for 100 years. Just think about it and you know what kind of concept this is. Longao started to feel tempted, because what he lacked the most now was strength. Longao, to tell you the truth, my father gave me the Watermoon Paradise back then for some reason. Therefore, I'm going to let you enter the Watermoon Paradise to cultivate. Without giving Longao any chance to speak, Ling Er continued, one is to fight Teng Li, and the other is to see senior sister as soon as possible and take her away. Make your choice. After saying this, Tong Linga took a step back and didn't say anything else. No matter what, the choice was in Longao's hands, not hers. It was quiet. Longao was also thinking quietly, because what Ling Er said made sense. This time, he didn't enter the Martial Artists Alliance to fight Teng Li, nor to act recklessly. His real goal was to see Yu Yin and take Yu Yin away in the end. Was he really going to lose this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity just because of a fight? After thinking for a while, Longao finally decided to consider the big picture. As for the fight with Teng Li, he would think about it later. Ling Er, if I enter the Watermoon Paradise and your father finds out, you won't be in trouble, right? Longao wasn't stupid. Of course, he knew what the Watermoon Paradise meant. It was one of the forbidden areas of the Martial Artists Alliance, the place where the Mongols of the Martial Artists Alliance cultivated in seclusion. He believed that apart from Ling Er and the Alliance Master, no one else, not even the Deputy Alliance Master, could enter the Watermoon Paradise. If the Alliance Master wanted to take responsibility, Longao wasn't worried. At most, he could just leave. But what about Ling Er? Smiling, Ling Er said in surprise, Longao, don't worry about this. Ever since my father gave the Watermoon Paradise to me, he hasn't come here for so many years. So don't worry, just cultivate at ease. If that's the case, then I'm relieved. Longao, I've given you a chance, but I hope you'll take it. Don't worry, I will. Longao was sincerely grateful to Ling Er. As for accepting Ling Er, that was something he couldn't do. Let's go. Nodding, Longao followed Ling Er to the mountain in front of them. After a while, the two of them disappeared into the mountain. It was a huge cave. The cave was very smooth. Drip, 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 as if it was raining. As soon as he stepped into the Watermoon Paradise, Longao was shocked. He was also very curious about what kind of place the Watermoon Paradise was. After all, the Alliance Master had cultivated in seclusion for 100 years in the Watermoon Paradise and reached such a super level. 100 years in seclusion sounded very long, but Longao knew very well that the Alliance Master was able to reach such a level in such a short period of time. Such talent was enough to make him look down on all the heroes. The Watermoon Paradise. It was one of the forbidden areas of the Martial Artists Alliance. No matter who it was, even the Vice Alliance Master, they couldn't easily enter the Watermoon Paradise. Otherwise, no matter who it was, they would be killed by the Alliance Master. The ceiling of the Watermoon Paradise was transparent. One could see the 9 heavens. When night fell, the 9 moons in the sky were reflected in the cave. The scenery was very beautiful. Ling Er, other than the spiritual qi being stronger than outside, I really can't see what's so special about the Watermoon Paradise. Longao was very curious. Since entering the Watermoon Paradise, he had been sensing the cave, but he still couldn't sense anything special. Longao knew very well that things couldn't be so simple. After all, Ling had just said that the Alliance Master had cultivated in seclusion here for 100 years and was one of the strongest people in the Tianwu continent. Furthermore, the Alliance Master had given the Watermoon Paradise to Ling. There had to be a special meaning. Otherwise, the Alliance Master wouldn't be so bored. Ling shook her head. I don't know. Back then, when Father gave the Watermoon Paradise to me, he only said that everything was fated. Everything was fated? What did that mean? Longao, you can cultivate here. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Chapter 939. Ling did not say anything else and left the Aquamoon Paradise. Standing alone in the Aquamoon Paradise, Longao thought about what the Alliance Master had said to Ling. Everything was connected by fate. After thinking about it, Longao finally understood it this way. The Aquamoon Paradise had its own secrets. If one wanted to obtain an opportunity, it would depend on one's luck. Without a doubt, Ling had not encountered an opportunity after so many years. Without thinking about it, Longao immediately began to observe the situation in the Aquamoon Paradise. Since Ling had risked her life to help him, if he did not seize the opportunity, he would be the first one to let Ling down. Long Fu, what did you sense? Inside the Dragon Seal space. Since entering the Martial Artists Alliance, Longao rarely communicated with Long Fu. The reason was simple. The Martial Artists Alliance had many powerful people. If someone sensed Long Fu's presence, it would be troublesome. Master, the Aquamoon Paradise is a treasure land. If I'm not mistaken, there should be a secret in the Aquamoon Paradise. What secret? I don't know. Master, whether there is an opportunity in the Aquamoon Paradise depends on your luck. I can't help you. Moreover, I don't dare to sense the Aquamoon Paradise. If we are discovered by powerful people, both of us will be in trouble. Nodding, Longao knew what Long Fu meant. In the end, Long Fu could not sense the Aquamoon Paradise with his aura. It seemed impossible to rely on Long Fu to find the secret of the Aquamoon Paradise. Inside the secret chamber, Tong Tiendi, who was cultivating, suddenly opened his eyes. His face was extremely gloomy. Someone dares to enter the Aquamoon Paradise. When Tong Tiendi gave the Aquamoon Paradise to Ling, he left a secret. He filled the entire place with his aura. Once someone entered the Aquamoon Paradise, he would be the first to sense it. Tong Tiendi was very nervous about the Aquamoon Paradise. Everything he had today was thanks to the Aquamoon Paradise. No matter who it was, anyone who dared to enter the Aquamoon Paradise without permission would die without a doubt. In the next second, Tong Tiendi's body disappeared from the secret room. Inside the Water Moon Cave, Longao was trying to sense the Aquamoon heavenly abode to see his luck. If he could really encounter a fortuitous encounter, then his strength would increase by leaps and bounds. At that time, he would have more confidence in taking away Yu Yin. At this moment, Longao's expression changed abruptly. Before he could react, his body was locked down by a cold aura. He didn't dare act rashly, as Longao could clearly sense that this icy aura could kill him in a matter of minutes. Who are you? You've entered my Water Moon Paradise, but you didn't even know that I was there. You're truly courting death. Longao was not an idiot. When he heard those words, he was completely stunned. This was because he had already guessed who the person who had locked onto him at this time was. The leader of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Ling'er's father, Tong Tiendi. Tong Tiendi's strength was unfathomable. Others might not know, but Longao clearly knew that even if Tong Tiendi's strength hadn't reached the pinnacle of martial arts and wasn't comparable to the marvelous mathematician and Tian Dao, it was probably close. Longao even guessed that Tong Tiendi's strength should be comparable to Long Tien and the others. There was a slight tremor in the air, and a small light spot slowly enlarged. In the blink of an eye, the light spot turned into a ball of light. Next, the ball of light disappeared, and a middle-aged man appeared. He looked 60 to 70% similar to Tong Ling'er. There was no need to guess. Longao could almost guess who this person was. Black Wolf greets the leader. Tong Tiendi seemed a little surprised when he heard the other party's self-introduction. He nodded indifferently, looked around, and asked in a cold voice, "Who let you in?" "Leader, I accidentally entered this place. I didn't know this was your place. I hope you can forgive me." Longao didn't tell the truth. Longao knew very well that even if Tong Ling was the leader's daughter, once Tong Tiendi knew about this, Tong Tiendi and himself would be in big trouble. That was why Longao was prepared to take all the responsibility. Who was Tong Tiendi? As the leader of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Tiendi could be said to be an old fox. Of course, he knew the truth. If it wasn't for his daughter, Black Wolf wouldn't have entered the Aquamoon heavenly abode. Tong Tiendi more or less had a good impression of Black Wolf. "Black Wolf, do you know where the Aquamoon heavenly abode is?" Longao wanted to shake his head, but he knew very well that since the other party had already discovered him, even if he tried to hide the truth, he wouldn't be able to. "I know. The Aquamoon heavenly abode is the forbidden area of the Martial Artists Alliance. It is also the place where the leader cultivates in seclusion. Since you know, or did you accidentally enter?" Longao didn't say anything, because he already sensed that the other party didn't have the slightest intention to kill him. Otherwise, with Tong Tiendi's strength, it would have been impossible for him to survive until now. "You are Longao?" Hearing the other party call out his name, Longao was shocked. In the Martial Artists Alliance, besides Tong Ling and Yu Yin, no one else seemed to know his true identity. Since things had already reached this point, how could Longao continue to hide it? Longao knew very well that since Tong Tiendi already knew his identity, there was no doubt that Tong Tiendi must have sent people to ask about him. However, Longao was very curious. He didn't know how the leader of the Martial Artists Alliance knew his true identity. "Since the leader already knows, then I won't hide it anymore. That's right, I am Longao." Longao had a grudge with the Martial Artists Alliance, but he couldn't figure out what Tong Tiendi was trying to do. However, after thinking about it, Longao still answered truthfully. As the saying goes, if there is a disaster, it can't be avoided. What will come will come. If there was no other choice, he would just enter the Dragon Seal space. He believed that even Tong Tiendi wouldn't be able to follow him into the Dragon Seal space. "You are not bad. To be able to grow to this point in such a short period of time, you must have had a fortuitous encounter. Long family has already announced to the world that you are no longer a disciple of the Long family. Since you are friends with Ling I will give you a chance to join the Martial Artists Alliance. How about it?" Tong Tiendi's attitude made Longao even more confused. Under normal circumstances, as the leader of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Tiendi should be high and mighty. Why would he put Longao in his eyes? Could it really be for Ling That's not very likely. Longao didn't know why, but he had a feeling that Tong Tiendi had a motive for doing this. P.S. The last chapter was updated at midnight. Little 9 tidied up the plot. Chapter 940. Alliance Leader. I am now a disciple of the Martial Artists Alliance. Longao knew very well what would happen if he rejected Tong Tiendi. If he was alone, Longao would not be afraid at all. However, the situation was different now. Yu Yin did not know what was going on, and Ling was still there. After thinking about it, he decided that he could not fall out with the Martial Artists Alliance for the time being. Tong Tiendi was the alliance leader of the Martial Artists Alliance. If he fell out with Tong Tiendi, it would be equivalent to falling out with the Martial Artists Alliance. Ha ha ha, good. Tong Tiendi seemed to be very satisfied with Longao. He even seemed to have forgotten about the fact that he had broken into the Aquamoon cave without permission. Longao, I will keep your identity a secret for the time being. As for the fact that you have entered the Aquamoon cave, I will not make a fuss about it. Hearing this, Longao was not surprised at all. Nobody knew what medicine Heavenly Emperor Tong was selling in his gourd. As the saying goes, It is hard to know what is in a person's heart. Longao did not care about the Martial Artists Alliance or the Long family. It had nothing to do with him. All he wanted was to take Yu Yin away. Thank you, Alliance leader. Since you have entered the Aquamoon Cave, I will say the same thing again. Everything is fate. After saying that, Tong Tiandi's figure disappeared from the cave. Only Longao was left in the cave. Standing quietly in the Aquamoon Cave, Longao was thinking about what Tong Tiendi had said. The alliance leader of the Martial Artists Alliance had not only come to deal with him, but also treated him so well. What did that mean? In the secret chamber, Long family leader Long Di Tien smiled and said, "Brother Tong, thank you very much." Waving his hand, Tong Tiendi said curiously, "You and I are friends. This is just a small matter. Brother Long, I am very curious. Since you value Longao so much, why did you expel him from the Long family?" Tong Tiendi, Long Di Tien. Their names were very special, especially the last two words, which were reversed. Tong Tiendi was the alliance leader of the Martial Artists Alliance, while Long Di Tien was the Long family leader. The two were the most powerful people in the Tianwu continent. Long Di Tien smiled helplessly and sighed. He said Long Di Tien said, "Long families long ago, the Dragon Clan and Dragon Clan, 1,000-year calamity." Longao? That's right, it's him. However, Longao's strength and cultivation speed are too slow. Without any other choice, I can only announce to the public that I have expelled him from the Long family. I hope that Longao will be able to grow quickly outside. If Long Di Tien's words were heard by Longao or anyone else, it was unknown whether they would be cursed. What kind of joke was this? Longao's cultivation speed and talent was simply extraordinary. However, such an existence was extremely slow in Long Di Tien's eyes. Nodding his head, Tong Tiendi seemed to be able to understand what Long Di Tien meant. After all, he was very clear on what 1,000-year calamity meant. Master Divine Mathematician hasn't appeared for so many years. I also have something to ask him. Thinking about it, Tong Tiendi continued, "Brother Long, I really can't imagine what kind of calamity will befall the Long family and Dragon Clan. Do you think Master Divine Mathematician made a mistake?" Made a mistake? Long Di Tien actually hoped that Master Divine Mathematician had made a mistake. He helplessly said, "Brother Tong, I believe that you know Master Divine Mathematician better than I do. In the Tianwu continent, Master Divine Mathematician's words are almost always true." The two of them naturally knew who Master Divine Mathematician was. Master Divine Mathematician was an expert who had truly reached the peak of the martial path in the Tianwu continent. Furthermore, he was proficient in the Tao of divination. Master Divine Mathematician's predictions were almost always correct. Brother Long, forgive me for speaking bluntly. Instead of waiting in fear every day, why don't you go to the Outer Sea Crystal Palace and personally ask Master Divine Mathematician for an answer? At that time, your Long family and Dragon Clan will be able to make preparations. Hearing Tong Tiendi's words, Long Di Tien lowered his head and began to ponder. In the end, he nodded his head and agreed. He had to trouble Master Divine Mathematician for this matter. Whether he would be able to obtain an answer was something that no one could say for sure. That's right. Brother Long, what should we do about Longao? After thinking for a while, Long Di Tien said, "Brother Tong, Longao will stay in the Martial Artists Alliance for this period of time. Don't come out for anything. I will thank you for this matter later. Please." "You're welcome." After Long Di Tien left, Tong Tiendi was the only one left in the secret room. All of a sudden, Tong Tiendi sneered and coldly snorted, "I will make you very satisfied." Within the Aquamoon Paradise, Longao was completely unaware of the matter between Long Di Tien and Tong Tiendi. At this moment, Longao was wholeheartedly focused on the Aquamoon Paradise. According to Ling once he obtained an opportunity within the Aquamoon Paradise, his cultivation speed would increase countless times. Strength. As for Teng Li, Longao did not appear for the battle 3 days later. This caused a lot of discussion. However, The most common theory was that Black Wolf was afraid and did not dare to come. Those who originally admired Black Wolf started to scold him. They all said that Black Wolf was a paper tiger. If Black Wolf did not come, Teng Li could not do anything. After all, even he could not find the whereabouts of Black Wolf. Without any other choice, Black Wolf could only look for Ling Er. In the end, other than being jealous, Black Wolf wanted to see how powerful the divine weapon in Black Wolf's hands was. In Ling Er's courtyard. Teng Li, you are a little too reckless. How dare you come to me and ask for her? Do you really think that you are the eldest senior brother? To be honest, Teng Li was still a little afraid of Ling Er. Not to mention that Ling Er's strength was far above his, Ling Er's identity alone made him not dare to provoke her. Otherwise, he would not even know how he died. However, things had already come to this point. Teng Li could no longer care about anything else. He smiled and said, Ling Er, the day of my battle with Black Wolf has arrived, but Black Wolf did not come. I would like to ask, is Black Wolf afraid, or is he afraid? Teng Li emphasized that he was afraid again and again. His meaning was very clear. He wanted to belittle Black Wolf as much as possible in front of Ling Er. He had to be ruthless against his love rival. Otherwise, how could he win? Why didn't Black Wolf come? How would I know? Teng Li, what are you trying to say? Ignoring Ling Er's gloomy face, Teng Li continued, 3 days ago, Ling Er was the one who helped Black Wolf leave. Therefore, I guessed that you and Black Wolf should have a good relationship. Therefore, I came to ask you where Black Wolf went. Or is he hiding and not daring to come out? Chapter 941. If it was Ling Er in the past, she would have exploded like a volcano. However, it was true that Black Wolf didn't go. Get out. Ling Er. Get out. This time, Ling Er didn't give Teng Li any chance to speak. A terrifying aura burst out from Ling Er's body, enveloping Teng Li and throwing him out. Plop. Unsurprisingly, Teng Li's entire body was sent flying. In the next second, he made the most intimate contact with the ground. If Ling Er had not shown mercy, just this alone would have been enough to kill Teng Li. Teng Li struggled to get up from the ground. His face was extremely gloomy. Teng Li was only a yellow-grade Great Emperor while Ling Er was a genuine titled Great Emperor. The gap between the two was too big. They weren't even on the same level. The 10 realms of Great Emperors were red-grade Great Emperor, orange-grade Great Emperor, yellow-grade Great Emperor, green-grade Great Emperor, cyan-grade Great Emperor, blue-grade Great Emperor, purple-grade Great Emperor, black-grade Great Emperor, white-grade Great Emperor, and gold-grade Great Emperor. Above the 10 realms of Great Emperor was the titled Great Emperor. Ling Er, I will definitely get you. As for Black Wolf, I will make him wish he was dead. Teng Li didn't continue to go in. He turned and left quickly. In the courtyard, Tong Ling Er's face wasn't looking good. Teng Li's strength was obvious. Even if Longao had some trump cards, he wouldn't be Teng Li's opponent. Luckily, Longao had entered the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave. If he was lucky, he might be able to break through after Longao left. At that time, he wouldn't have to worry about meeting Teng Li again. Inside the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. However, Longao still hadn't found the so-called opportunity. After looking around, he sat on the ground and looked around gloomily. Long Fu, why don't you release your aura and try to sense the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave? Since Tong Tiendi no longer pursued him for entering the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave, Longao was almost certain that Tong Tiendi was no longer monitoring him. In that case, he might as well ask Long Fu for help. It seemed that it would be very difficult for him to obtain the opportunity in the Aquamoon Heavenly Abode by himself. Long Fu didn't even think and said, Master, the entire Aquamoon Heavenly Grotto is filled with auras. If I release my own aura, Tong Tiendi will definitely sense it. He was a little surprised. Longao had a new understanding of Tong Tiendi's strength. The fact that Long Fu was so afraid of Tong Tiendi already explained everything. Master, Tong Tiendi is right. Everything is fated. If you are not fated with the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave, then even if you find it, it will be useless. Nodding his head, Longao did not continue asking. He already understood what Long Fu meant. He still had to rely on himself. Everything was fated. He didn't continue to waste time. Although Ling and Tong Tiendi didn't set a time limit for him in the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave, Longao was still a little anxious. The reason was that he wanted to see Yu Yin as soon as possible. After 3 whole days, Longao even doubted whether he would have the opportunity to obtain the opportunity in the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave. After thinking about it, Longao finally made a decision. If he still couldn't obtain the so-called opportunity in the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave in 10 days, then he would choose to leave the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave and find a way to see Yu Yin. If it was an ordinary person who finally managed to enter the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave, even if they couldn't obtain the opportunity temporarily, they would most likely stay in the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave forever, even if it was for the rest of their lives. However, Longao's situation was completely different. Again, the main reason why Longao joined the Martial Artists Alliance was to see Yu Yin. If he had to choose between Yu Yin and the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave, then without a doubt, Longao would definitely choose Yu Yin, not the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave. Sitting quietly in the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave, Longao really didn't have the strength to continue sensing. After 3 whole days, what was supposed to come would come. What didn't belong to him, no matter how hard he tried, would never belong to him. At night, the entire cave was shrouded in moonlight. The reflection of the 9 heavens in the cave was very beautiful. In the center of the cave, there was a huge pool. There was nothing in it, which was the so-called empty pool. From the beginning to the end, Longao didn't pay attention to the pool. However, at this moment, his eyes narrowed, and his face was filled with disbelief. He slowly stood up and walked to the pool. With just a glance, Longao's face became even more shocked. The pool, which was originally empty, now seemed to be covered in layers of moonlight, as if it was filled with water. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would have never seen such a miraculous scene. Could this be the secret of the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave? Longao, I have to admit that your luck is the best I've ever seen. Hearing the voice behind him, Longao was a little surprised, because he never thought that Tong Tiendi would come to the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave again. Not only that, but he also didn't think that he would really encounter the opportunity of the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't happy. Alliance Master, you said that the secret of the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave is in this pool? Tong Tiendi nodded with a smile on his face. It was impossible to tell what the other party was thinking. That's right, the secret of the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave is in this pool. Tong Tiendi walked to the pool and continued, back then, when I got the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave, it took me a whole 30 years to get the opportunity here. I really didn't expect that you would get it in just 3 days. 30 years. That was a shock. Alliance Master, I want to ask, what should I do now? Longao was very clear that even if he obtained an opportunity, it would not be an easy thing to quickly increase his strength. One had to know that the Alliance leader had spent an entire 100 years to achieve today's achievements. Could it be that he had to cultivate here for 100 years? Impossible. Longao had already thought about this matter. Even if he had already obtained the opportunity, he would leave the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave in a month at most, no matter how far his cultivation base could break through. This was because he was really anxious and couldn't wait to see his lover. Longao, I believe that you already know the meaning of the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave. Now that you're in the pool, you should know the secret. Back then, I cultivated in the pool for a whole 10 days, but I cultivated in the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave for 300 years. Hearing Tong Tiendi's words, Longao almost choked. He asked impatiently, Alliance Master, didn't you cultivate in the Aquamoon Heavenly Cave for 100 years? Why is it 300 years now? Longao knew very well the difference between cultivating for 100 years and cultivating for 300 years. The two were 2 completely different concepts and couldn't be compared. Chapter 942. 300 years. I'm the first. Longao didn't continue asking because he already knew what Tong Tiendi meant. Alliance Master, if that's the case, I'll go in first. Since things had already come to this point, Longao didn't want to waste any more time. He had already decided that once he entered the pool, he would leave the Aquamoon heavenly abode. As for continuing to cultivate here, that was absolutely impossible. Even if he had to break through Tong Tiendi's realm in 300 years, Longao would still choose to give up. However, Tong Tiendi waved his hand and said, "Wait a moment. I have something to say to you." Longao was very curious, but he still walked to the side and sat down at the same time as Tong Tiendi. "Longao, I know Ling'er's personality very well. All these years, Ling'er has never cared so much about a man, let alone bringing him into the Aquamoon heavenly abode." Longao wasn't a fool. The Alliance Master's meaning was very clear. However, Longao still didn't admit it because there were some things that didn't need to be said out loud. "Longao, if I'm not wrong, Ling'er should be very fond of you. What do you think?" He sighed deeply in his heart. How could Longao not know about Ling'er's feelings? But could he agree? In Longao's heart, there were only two women. One was Aoshue, and the other was Yu Yin. Other than them, there was no room for anyone else. If he could accept it, he wouldn't have waited until now. Long Jing was an example. Longao didn't want to hurt Ling'er, but after thinking about it, it was better to deal with it quickly. If he rejected now, at least he could completely cut off Ling'er's thoughts. Thinking of this, Longao said honestly, "Alliance Master, to be honest, I already have a lover." "Your lover is Yu Yin, right?" "My grass." Longao cursed in his heart. He had never imagined that the Alliance Master would know about the matter between him and Yu Yin. If that was the case, how much more did Tong Tiendi know? However, since the other party already knew, there was no need for him to continue hiding it. Longao nodded and replied, "That's right. That little girl, Yu Yin, is not bad. If there are no accidents, Yu Yin should be a warrior of the Supreme Tao now. You joined the Martial Artists Alliance this time mainly for Yu Yin, right?" "That's right. Warriors of the Supreme Tao?" Longao smiled bitterly. He had thought of countless possibilities before. With Yu Yin's physique and the full support of the Martial Artists Alliance, it would be very good if she could break through to the Great Emperor realm in just a few years. However, he still didn't expect that Yu Yin was already a warrior of the Supreme Tao. It was unbelievable. "Longao, although I am the Alliance Master, there are some things that I can't intervene in. Therefore, if you want to take Yu Yin away, you have to rely on yourself." "I understand." Whether it was a mountain of swords or a sea of flames, Longao had already decided that he had to take Yu Yin away, even if he had to die in battle. "I won't ask about the matter between you and Yu Yin. As for the matter between you and Ling'er, I won't interfere. I have always believed in fate. If you and Ling'er are fated to be together, then you will naturally walk together." "Thank you, Alliance Master." Longao had a good impression of the Alliance Master of the Martial Artists Alliance. In this case, he also decided that after this matter was over, he would immediately find Ling'er and make everything clear. Again, Longao didn't want to hurt Ling'er. "Longao, do you know the leader of the Heaven and Earth sect, Yi Gudu? The 10 Tripod, the Long Family, the Alchemy Alliance, the Martial Artists Alliance, the WN Show sect, the Heaven and Earth sect, the 5 Elements sect, the Wanjan School, the Sword sect, the Purple Thunder sect, and the Black Heaven sect. Among the 3 sects, the Heaven and Earth sect was one of them. One could imagine how strong and powerful the Heaven and Earth sect was. As for Yi Gudu, Longao couldn't say whether he knew him or not. Because from beginning to end, he had never really seen Yi Gudu. He had only seen Yi Gudu's doppelganger when he stepped on the stairway to heaven twice. Longao knew very well that Yi Gudu of the Heaven and Earth sect and the Alliance Master of the Martial Artists Alliance next to him stood at the same height in terms of strength and status. "Alliance Master, to be honest, I once reached the top of the stairway to heaven, so I saw Yi Gudu's doppelganger. As for whether I know Yi Gudu or not, I really can't answer you on this point. To tell the truth, Longao really didn't know whether he knew Yi Gudu or not. Longao, if there's nothing else, you'd better stay away from Yi Gudu. Among the 10 sects, this person is the most dangerous. Do you understand? Longao didn't know whether Tong Tiendi was being kind or had other intentions, but Longao nodded. Alliance Master, I'll remember. Longao, since you and Ling are friends, then if you don't mind, you can call me Uncle Tong in the future. Uncle Tong? If Tong Tiendi hadn't said it himself, Longao wouldn't have dared to imagine that the Alliance Master of the Martial Artists Alliance would actually ask him to call him Uncle Tong. It was really unbelievable. However, Longao didn't want to waste time, so in the end, he still called him Uncle Tong. Moreover, Longao had already thought that if he had such a strong backer, wouldn't it be much easier to take away Yu Yin in the future? Tong Tiendi seemed to be able to see Longao's impatience. He smiled, got up, and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Only after Tong Tiendi left did Longao let out a sigh of relief. Without any hesitation, Longao immediately got up and went to the side of the pool. According to Tong Tiendi's words, even he had used a total of 30 years to achieve such a miraculous scene. As for the current situation, it had taken him a total of 300 years. And this was Tong Tiendi, not to mention other people. Not to mention 300 years, even 3,000 years might not be enough to achieve such a feat after all. Tong Tiendi's talent and potential, even in the entire Tianwu continent, was a super existence. Long Fu, is the pool alright? Longao didn't enter the pool rashly. If he wasn't careful, the pool wasn't an opportunity, but a so-called trap or danger. Wouldn't he be in a lot of trouble? Master, quickly enter the pool. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for you. I can almost guarantee that once you enter the pool, you will only need a month to break through a level. A month? Break through a level? What kind of concept was that? Longao was very clear that his cultivation had already broken through the Crimson Grade Great Emperor realm. If he could break through to the next level, then it would be the so-called Orange Grade Great Emperor realm. Just thinking about breaking through from the Crimson Grade Great Emperor realm to the Orange Grade Great Emperor realm in a month's time made him extremely excited. Because of this, Longao didn't continue to hesitate and directly jumped into the pool. Chapter 943. In the pool. Longao's expression changed the moment he stepped into the pool. He finally knew what kind of opportunity was in the pool. The pool itself was a treasure. With the help of the power of heaven and earth and the water-moon paradise, it formed a special holy land for cultivation. In the pool, one could absorb the essence of heaven and earth at the fastest speed. That's right, it was the essence of heaven and earth. Long Fu, what is the essence of heaven and earth? Longao wasn't very clear about the essence of heaven and earth as he had never come into contact with it before. Master, the essence of heaven and earth is the purest power in heaven and earth. Although it's not as good as the power of origin, it's definitely the most beneficial power for a martial artist's cultivation. He was pleasantly surprised. Longao had already sensed the difference in the essence of heaven and earth. If he could absorb this essence of heaven and earth, it would be very helpful for his future cultivation even if his cultivation level didn't increase for the time being. Master, the essence of heaven and earth is not like the power of origin. It's very difficult to condense in heaven and earth. It's hard to imagine that there would be essence of heaven and earth in this place. Even without Long Fu's explanation, Longao knew how precious the essence of heaven and earth was. Since that was the case, he couldn't give up this opportunity. Longao wasn't sure how long the essence of heaven and earth would fill the pool. Therefore, he had to seize every minute and second to absorb as much as he could. The entire pool was filled with a transparent power that constantly entered Longao's body. Back then, it took Tong Tiendi 30 years to encounter the essence of heaven and earth, but he only absorbed it for a month. Longao didn't know how long he could absorb it. Long Fu had already said that although the essence of heaven and earth was not as good as the power of origin, it was the most precious thing for a martial artist. Gradually, Longao was wrapped in a thick cocoon by the essence of heaven and earth. From the outside, one could no longer see Longao's figure, only a transparent and sticky cocoon. Ting Li left the courtyard. The anger, envy, and hatred in his heart had already blinded his eyes. Under normal circumstances, Ting Li would never do that. However, in the following period of time, Ting Li spread the word that Black Wolf was a coward who didn't dare to accept the challenge. When Ling heard the news, she was furious and prepared to kill Ting Li. However, at this time, Hades finally appeared. Ling didn't dare to make the slightest move because she knew that Longao's identity couldn't be revealed to her master. Otherwise, Longao would die without a doubt. For a long time, Hades wanted to kill Longao. There were many reasons, but the most important was that he wanted Yu Yin to completely sever ties with Longao. From beginning to end, Hades had no idea that Longao would come to the Martial Artists Alliance. In the courtyard. "Master, are you looking for me?" Ling was very afraid of this master of hers because she knew very well that even if her father personally came, he would still have to be courteous, let alone her. Ling couldn't figure it out. Although her master was powerful, there were many people in the Martial Artists Alliance who were more powerful than her master. Why was her father so afraid of her master? Was there something fishy going on? Ling didn't dare to ask because she knew what she should and shouldn't ask. "Ling, I heard that you haven't been cultivating and have been hanging out with an inner sect disciple named Black Wolf. Is this true?" Of course, Ling didn't dare to tell the truth. "Master, I know Black Wolf before. This time, I only helped a little. As for cultivation, I've been working hard every day, but I still can't break through to the demigod realm." The demigod realm was above the Great Emperor realm and below the divine path. It was a transitional realm between the Great Emperor realm and the divine path. In order to break through to the divine path, one must first break through from the titled Great Emperor realm to the demigod realm. Only then would one be able to sense the god's tribulation. Therefore, Ling only had one thing to do now, and that was to do everything she could to break through from the titled Great Emperor realm to the demigod realm. "This is the main reason I'm here this time. From now on, you'll stay by my side. When you break through to the demigod realm and sense the god's tribulation, you'll leave me. Otherwise," Hades didn't finish his words, but the meaning in his words was clear. Ling was shocked when she heard her master's words. This was the most painful thing in her life. However, since her master had said it, she wouldn't dare to go against her master's wishes even if she had 10,000 guts. Ling thought about it and asked softly, "Master, if I can sense the god's tribulation, will I be free? The Alliance Chief and I are worried about you going through the god's tribulation alone. Therefore, when you sense the god's tribulation and successfully pass it, you'll be free." Hades seemed to have thought of something and continued, "Don't bargain with me. Otherwise, you know the consequences." Ling muttered to herself. Ling was very dissatisfied. However, due to her master's prestige, she could only curse in her heart and didn't dare to say anything. "Master, Senior Martial Sister has successfully broken through to the Supreme Tao realm. Will you let Senior Martial Sister return to the Jojo continent?" "Shut up, Ling. From now on, you're not allowed to mention anything about this." Ling stuck out her tongue. Although her master didn't say it clearly, Ling could guess that her master didn't want her senior martial sister to return to the Jojo continent. He didn't want the two of them to be together. Just like what Ling said. Even if Yu Yin's cultivation successfully broke through to the Supreme Tao realm, she still wouldn't be able to obtain her freedom, let alone leave the Martial Artists Alliance and return to the Jojo continent. It could be said that Yu Yin was the Martial Artists Alliance's priority to nurture. Clear Sky Sect, outside the blood pool in the cave. Yang Dingtian and Zhao Yu had already absorbed all the blood in the blood pool after several months of absorption. The two of them were filled with killing intent and hostility. They were like two killing machines that gave off a feeling that they came from hell. Yang Yu seemed to be very satisfied with their current state. She nodded and said, "The two of you have become masters' left and right hands. In just a few months, You have successfully broken through to the titled Great Emperor realm. Now, the two of you have two things to do. First, kill Longao and take back the god-slaying sword. Second, break through to the demigod realm and even the supreme Tao realm as soon as possible. Grandfather, we understand. But before that, there's something we have to do. After the two of them broke through to the titled Great Emperor realm, Yang Yu led the Clear Sky sect and destroyed the Black Wind Valley in just one day. In the entire Tianwu continent, such things happened almost every day. Therefore, the destruction of the Black Wind Valley didn't cause any commotion. As for the Martial Artists Alliance, regardless of whether it was the Black Wind Valley or the Clear Sky sect, they were just pawns in front of the Martial Artists Alliance. Even if the two sects were destroyed, the Martial Artists Alliance wouldn't have any reaction. Yang Yu of the Clear Sky sect knew this clearly. However, she didn't provoke the Martial Artists Alliance. Chapter 944. Destroy Black Wind Valley. What Yang Yu did next was to lock onto Longao's position. But even if Yang Yu was beaten to death, he would never expect that his enemy, Longao, would be in the Martial Artists Alliance, and in the forbidden area of the Martial Artists Alliance. After all, the Heavenly Sect was still a subsidiary sect of the Martial Artists Alliance. Not only the Heavenly Sect, but even the Long family's first elder was also looking for Longao's whereabouts. Long Hang knew that he only had 9 months to deal with Longao. Once Longao returned to the Long family after 9 months, he would be in big trouble. If it wasn't for the master's intervention, Longao would never deal with an ordinary disciple with Long Hang's status. It was still the same thing. There was also an intense struggle within the Long clan. In the Martial Artists Alliance, Ling was forcefully taken away by Hades. She didn't even have time to inform Longao. Teng Li's efforts to defame Longao seemed to be losing its effect. After all, Longao wasn't famous in the Martial Artists Alliance. He only defeated Lu Tianzi, 3 orange great monarch spirit beasts, and a divine weapon. This wasn't enough for everyone to remember him. Teng Li was very unwilling. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. The angrier he got, the more he wanted to kill Black Wolf. But the problem now was that he couldn't find Black Wolf even after searching the entire Martial Artists Alliance. Black Wolf seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth. As for Longao, he was still in the Aquamoon heavenly abode. In the pool, Longao was wrapped in the essence of heaven and earth like a huge cocoon. No one knew what was going on inside the cocoon. Inside the huge cocoon, Longao closed his eyes and kept absorbing the essence of heaven and earth around him. If it was an ordinary person, even Tong Tiendi, absorbing the essence of heaven and earth wouldn't be able to convert it into energy and break through. But Longao was different. Longao had already circulated the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique when the heaven and earth essence had been released. Although he didn't know if this would work, he had to give it a try since things had come to this point. After trying it out, Longao was pleasantly surprised. Longao discovered that as he circulated the 9 revolutions samsara arts, he could convert the world essence he absorbed into energy for his own cultivation in the shortest time possible. Even so, 90% of the heaven and earth essence was still absorbed by his body and Dantian. It seemed that it would not be easy to completely refine the heaven and earth essence. Longao finally understood why Tong Tiendi had to stay in the water moon cave for 300 years even though he had absorbed the essence of heaven and earth. Without a doubt. Longao could almost be sure that the heavenly Emperor Tong of the past, with the help of the Aquamoon heavenly abode, had spent a total of 300 years to completely refine all the heaven and earth essence he had absorbed. Thinking about it, it was a terrifying thing. Even if Longao had full confidence and the help of the 9 revolutions samsara arts, he would still need at least 100 years to refine it. 100 years. Longao tried his best to refine the heaven and earth essence he had absorbed and fused it, hoping to break through as soon as possible. As expected, Longao could clearly feel that ever since he had absorbed the heaven and earth essence, his cultivation had broken through from the beginner Crimson Great Emperor realm to the intermediate Crimson Great Emperor realm in just a few days. If he continued to develop at this rate, he believed that he would be able to break through to the orange level Great Emperor realm in less than a month. According to Tong Tiendi, he had absorbed the heaven and earth essence for a whole month before the heaven and earth anomaly gradually disappeared. If he was lucky, he would be able to break through to the orange level Great Emperor realm after absorbing the heaven and earth essence for a month. He might even be able to break through to a higher level. Everything was possible. As for how long he would need to refine the remaining heaven and earth essence, he had no idea. 10 days passed by quietly. With the help of the heaven and earth essence, Longao's cultivation had broken through again in just 10 days. He had entered the advanced Crimson Great Emperor realm from the intermediate Crimson Great Emperor realm. It would take at most 5 days for Longao's cultivation to break through again and reach the so-called peak Crimson Great Emperor realm. While Longao was pleasantly surprised, he didn't dare to relax at all. Outside the Aquamoon heavenly abode, Tong Tiendi's expression changed when he felt the aura leaking out of the Aquamoon heavenly abode. He couldn't believe that Longao had already sensed the heaven and earth essence in just 3 days. Even he felt ashamed of his own inferiority when it came to such talent and potential. Tong Tiendi even wondered if it was a good thing or a bad thing to let Longao stay. Taking a step back, if Longao left the Martial Artists Alliance and returned to the Long family, wouldn't Tong Tiendi's efforts be in vain? However, Tong Tiendi decided to take a gamble in the end. He bet that Longao wouldn't return to the Long family and would stay in the Martial Artists Alliance. If that was the case, it might not be a bad thing for the Martial Artists Alliance. I hope you can be of use to me. Tong Tiendi didn't stay any longer. He turned and left. Soon, he disappeared without a trace. 40 days later, the giant cocoon broke open instantly. Longao sat quietly in the pool. The heaven and earth essence had already disappeared without a trace. Gradually opening his eyes, Longao's face was filled with surprise. In just 40 days, his cultivation base had not only broken through from the Crimson Great Monarch realm to the Orange Great Monarch realm, he had even reached the peak of the Orange Great Monarch realm. He was only one step away. Longao felt helpless. If he could absorb the heaven and earth essence for 10 more days, his cultivation could definitely break through from the orange level Great Emperor realm to the yellow level Great Emperor realm. However, things didn't go as he wished. He only absorbed the heaven and earth essence for 40 days. He couldn't even do it in 10 days. However, Longao was very satisfied. How could an ordinary person break through to the peak orange level Great Emperor realm in just 40 days? As for the remaining heaven and earth essence, Longao had already calculated. Even if he used the 9-cycle reincarnation technique, he would still have to refine it slowly. 40 days, to a martial artist, it might just be the time of a blink of an eye. But to Longao, 40 days was too long. If he continued to stay in the Aquamoon heavenly cave, his cultivation speed would definitely be faster. However, Longao chose to leave in the end. He hoped to see Yu Yin as soon as possible. After leaving the Aquamoon heavenly cave, Longao wanted to find Ling first. No matter what, he had to thank Ling. If it wasn't for Ling's help, he wouldn't have been able to enter the Aquamoon heavenly cave, let alone absorb the heaven and earth essence and break through to the peak orange level Great Emperor realm. Longao had just arrived outside the courtyard. Black Wolf, you've finally appeared. Even if you're afraid, you don't have to be like this. I don't want to despise you, but I can't help but despise you. I really wonder why Ling likes a cowardly turtle like you. Chapter 945. Grapes that can't be eaten will always be sour. Hearing the other party's mockery, Teng Li was instantly enraged. Teng Li, the reason why I didn't go was because I had something urgent to do. Don't think that you're invincible. I can tell you clearly that you're not even a fart in my eyes. Longao didn't like people like Teng Li. Just because he was a core disciple of the Martial Artists Alliance and a yellow-grade Great Emperor martial artist, he was arrogant. More importantly, he was very uncomfortable that Teng Li was always framing his relationship with Ling Er. Black Wolf, cut the crap. Do you have the guts to accept the battle 40 days ago? He continued to issue challenges. In Teng Li's eyes, the young man in front of him was always a great danger. No matter what happened, he had to take care of the other party. Under normal circumstances, he couldn't kill the other party, so there was only one way, which was to issue a challenge. Once the other party accepted the challenge, even if he killed the other party during the battle, the Martial Artists Alliance wouldn't blame him. In Teng Li's eyes, the Black Wolf in front of him would definitely not dare to accept the challenge. If Black Wolf dared to accept the challenge, then the Black Wolf wouldn't be a coward 40 days ago. Teng Li was very confident. Even if the other party had the help of a divine weapon, he was still a red-grade Great Emperor martial artist. If he wanted to kill the other party, it would be a matter of minutes. Longao of course knew the confidence in Teng Li's heart. If it was 40 days ago, Longao would be more or less worried. Even if he used the Annihilation Divine Bow, it would be difficult to kill Teng Li. After all, the difference between a red-grade Great Emperor and a yellow-grade Great Emperor was too big. But now, Longao's cultivation base had successfully broken through to the peak of the orange-grade Great Emperor realm. He wanted to test his current strength and see if he could contend against a yellow-grade Great Emperor realm martial artist. It was still unknown. Just as he wanted to test it out, Longao accepted the challenge. Teng Li, I accept the challenge. Life and Death Cliff. Longao waved his hand and didn't give Teng Li any chance to speak. He continued, let's choose another place. Longao had already thought about it. In order to be able to see Yu Yin as soon as possible, he was definitely not willing to go to the Life and Death Cliff unless it was absolutely necessary. His previous battle with Lu Tianxi had already been publicized. However, from Teng Li's point of view, Longao did not dare to go to the Cliff of Life and Death because he was afraid that Teng Li would kill him. After all, the Martial Artists Alliance had a clear rule that only battles on the Cliff of Life and Death were allowed regardless of life and death. As for other places, the rules were not the same. Black Wolf, if you're afraid of death, you can refuse my challenge. Regarding Teng Li's meaning, how could Longao not know? Teng Li, you can choose any location. We will fight to the death, no matter who dies. I hope you won't run away when the time comes. Teng Li sneered and turned around to leave. Longao did not linger and followed Teng Li. The two of them, one in front and one behind, disappeared without a trace in a short while. Behind the Martial Artists Alliance, on the top of a barren mountain. Usually, almost no one would come to this barren mountain. Teng Li's intention for choosing this place was very clear. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that no one cared about this place to kill Black Wolf. When the time came, no one would know. He believed that even the Martial Artists Alliance would not know. Black Wolf, if you kneel down and beg me now, I can let you go. This kind of words again. Every time Longao heard this kind of words, he could not stand it. Without saying any more nonsense, Longao's body suddenly disappeared from his original spot. This time, he did not plan to use the silent divine bow. As for this place being so secluded, even if he used some trump cards, it would not be impossible. Since things had come to this point, Longao did not plan to keep Teng Li alive. It was still the same saying. Sometimes, being kind to the enemy was the cruelest to oneself. Especially at this time, there must not be any accidents. Otherwise, not to mention whether he would be safe, he did not even know if he could see Yu Yin. Because of this, Longao had decided that no matter what happened in this battle, he would kill Teng Li. With the help of spatial teleportation, Longao's body instantly disappeared from the spot. This gave Teng Li a fright. He did not know what had happened. How could Longao disappear right under his nose? He did not dare to be careless. Before Teng Li could react, Longao's body had already appeared. There was no mercy. The deity-slaying sword in Longao's hand had already slashed out. The Emperor Dragon's 9 fatal strikes rang out at the same time. At the same time, terrifying sword chi came one after another. The surrounding space seemed to be trembling. Tang Li was a little frightened. He did not dare to imagine how Black Wolf, who was originally a Crimson Grade Great Emperor, could suddenly become a Peak Orange Grade Great Emperor. If it was an ordinary Orange Grade Great Emperor, Tang Li could almost ignore it. This was because the gap between an Orange Grade Great Emperor and a Yellow Grade Great Emperor was very big. But for some reason, Tang Li did not have full confidence in fighting Black Wolf. Tang Li dodged in time, but he was still injured by the sword chi. He rolled and crawled. If he did not dodge in time, Tang Li would have been killed by the dragon's sword chi. He was overjoyed. Longao finally knew his own strength. He could definitely fight against a Yellow Grade Great Emperor. Not giving Tang Li any chance to fight back, Longao's God-punishing sword followed by another sword, forcing Tang Li back. The Earth Elemental Art and Gravity Space suppressed Tang Li. At this moment, Tang Li finally released the power of his domain. From his point of view, even if the opponent's strength was a threat to him, the absolute suppression of the domain was still there. The 10 realms of Great Emperor, each realm's domain could absolutely suppress the domain of the next realm. This was common sense. However, Tang Li would never have thought that the slaughter domain released by Black Wolf was not only not suppressed by him, but also suppressed him. If he did not experience it himself, he would never have believed it. He was suppressed by an Orange Grade Great Emperor's domain? What kind of concept was this? Until now, Tang Li still could not figure out how Black Wolf did it. How could he break through from the beginner Crimson Grade Great Emperor realm to the peak Orange Grade Great Emperor realm in just 40 days? It was unbelievable. Even among the core disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance, such cultivation speed could definitely be ranked in the top 3. The slaughter domain could completely suppress a higher level domain. If Tang Li was a green grade Great Emperor, then the slaughter domain might not be able to suppress him. Tang Li did not dare to be the slightest bit careless, but Longao did not have the slightest bit of mercy. One of them advanced and the other retreated. As the battle continued to escalate, the balance was already leaning towards Longao. If this situation continued, the probability of Tang Li being killed was very high. Chapter 946. In the beginning, Tang Li was still full of confidence. However, as the battle continued to escalate, Tang Li lost his confidence. As a result, Tang Li's strength instantly weakened. He was overjoyed. Of course, Longao wouldn't let go of such a rare opportunity. Annihilation Divine Bow. In order to be safe, Longao decided to use the Annihilation Divine Bow's power. With the Annihilation Divine Bow in hand, Longao began to draw the bow with all his strength. One could imagine the power of this bow. Back then, Longao was only a Crimson Great Emperor. With the Annihilation Divine Bow in his hand, he killed Lu Tianzi and 3 Orange Great Emperor Spirit Beasts. What kind of concept was that? It was precisely because of the previous example that when Tang Li saw the broken bow in He Lang's hands, he was completely terrified. Of course, Tang Li knew the power of the broken bow. It was better to be safe than sorry. If Black Wolf really had the strength to kill him, wouldn't his sacrifice be in vain? Without the confidence from before, Tang Li couldn't wait to leave. However, just as he was about to turn around and leave, his whole body was instantly locked. He was shocked. Black Wolf, this battle is over. You win. In this situation, other than admitting defeat, Tang Li couldn't think of any other way. No matter what, he had to save his life first. Everything else was nonsense. Would Longao agree? The answer was obvious. If there were people around, Longao certainly wouldn't kill him. However, in order to avoid unnecessary trouble, he was prepared to kill Tang Li, otherwise, Tang Li would bring him endless trouble sooner or later. Because of this, the bow in Longao's hand that was already drawn finally released the arrow. Tang Li disappeared without a trace. Longao didn't stay and left. Longao originally wanted to find Ling to thank her. However, when he returned to the courtyard, he couldn't find her. In desperation, Longao could only choose to ask about Yu Yin, hoping to see Yu Yin as soon as possible. However, the martial artists' alliance was too big. Even with Yu Yin's fame, it wasn't easy to find her in a short time. Furthermore, Longao didn't dare to look for him openly. Once the martial artists' alliance found out about his identity, things would only get more and more troublesome. Although Teng Li was a core disciple, for the entire martial artists' alliance, Teng Li's disappearance did not attract much attention. As for Longao killing Lu Tianzi and the 3 orange-grade Great Monarch spirit beasts, it did cause a small commotion. However, as Longao disappeared for 40 days, the commotion was like a stone thrown into the sea. The killing of Teng Li this time could be said to have been done in secret. Longao was very confident that this matter would definitely not spread. However, for some unknown reason, less than 6 hours after Longao killed Teng Li, the news of him killing Teng Li was made public. No matter who it was, after hearing the news, they were all shocked. The Martial Artists Alliance had made it clear that no matter who it was, no one was allowed to kill their fellow disciples in private. If there were any unresolvable grudges, they could go to the cliff of life and death. Black Wolf's actions showed that he didn't put the Martial Artists Alliance in his eyes at all. Other than being shocked, many people were curious, but more of them didn't believe it. After all, the difference in strength between Black Wolf and Teng Li was too big. Even if he had a divine weapon, it was almost impossible for a red-grade Great Monarch martial artist to kill a yellow-grade Great Monarch martial artist. Longao also received the news and was also shocked. Of course, he knew what it meant if this matter was leaked out. Who could it be? In the entire Martial Artists Alliance, there were only a few people who knew his identity. If that was the case, Hades and Lei Luo could be ruled out. Could it be Mai Kai? After thinking for a while, Longao finally locked onto Mai Kai. Because other than this person, he couldn't think of anyone else who would be bored enough to find trouble with him. If it was an open battle, Longao wouldn't be afraid at all. However, if Mai Kai was playing dirty, then things would be troublesome. Just as expected. In the afternoon when the news was spread, someone sent a message saying that the 2 vice leaders wanted to see Longao. In the Martial Artists Alliance, there were 8 vice leaders. Although their status and strength were similar, the things they were in charge of were different. Shangguan Ye and Tang Hao were usually in charge of the Martial Artists Alliance's punishment. Black Wolf killed Teng Li without permission, which violated the Martial Artists Alliance's rules. Of course, the 2 vice leaders would be personally involved. Under normal circumstances, the 2 vice alliance masters would never appear in person. It was precisely because of this that many people began to speculate about He Lang's background. First, Linger had stepped out to help him. Then, the 2 vice leaders had personally summoned him. Could it be that He Lang's background was extraordinary? In a short period of time, Black Wolf became a celebrity in the Martial Artists Alliance. Inside a large hall. The empty hall was very simple. Tang Hao and Shangguan Ye sat in the main seats. Below them sat 4 people, who were their subordinates. Usually, if a disciple committed a crime, no matter if it was an inner disciple or a core disciple, as long as it wasn't a guardian or above, the 2 vice leaders wouldn't appear. Instead, they would let their subordinates handle it. Cousin, since the matter of He Lang killing Teng Li has already become a fact, why do we still have to do something unnecessary? Shangguan Ye had already cursed Tang Hao's 18 generations of ancestors in her heart. However, she didn't dare to say anything because of Tang Hao's strength and status. Shangguan Ye was determined to kill Black Wolf. The reason was simple. For so many years, because of him and the Shangguan clan, no one, not even the other vice leaders, dared to provoke them. Only this weirdo appeared. Not only did he provoke the Shangguan clan, but he also killed their genius disciple and stole the Kailin blood. If the Shangguan clan didn't get back their dignity, how could he save his face? How could the Shangguan clan survive in the imperial city in the future? Brother Shangguan, no one saw Black Wolf kill Teng Li. It seems a little too hasty to convict Black Wolf based on some groundless rumors. Previously, Black Wolf killed Lu Tianzi and the 3 Ironback Azure Bears. I'm very interested in this guy. Let's wait and see. Wait and see, my ass. Shangguan Yi was very curious because Tang Hao was just an insignificant inner disciple. Logically speaking, Tang Hao should have known her intention and should have done her a favor. However, what was the result? What was Tang Hao's intention? Was Tang Hao deliberately going against her? Something didn't seem right. Shangguan Yi didn't say much. After all, Tang Hao had already said so much. If she continued, it would seem unnecessary. At this moment, footsteps came from outside the hall. Without asking, everyone knew who had come. The main character this time was Black Wolf. Chapter 947. Outside the main hall. Longao stood there quietly. He knew that once he stepped into the main hall, it was unknown whether he could come out alive. However, Longao knew that if he did not enter this time, he would lose the chance to see Yu Yin. Longao also never thought that the matter this time would actually alarm the two Vice Alliance leaders. What was to come would come. There was no avoiding it. Longao finally took a step forward, pushed open the door and walked in. As soon as he stepped into the main hall, Longao saw Tang Hao sitting at the head of the table. He was delighted. After all, among the 10 people, Tang Hao was one of them. As Murong Yangus' grandfather, Tang Hao was on his side. However, Longao did not place all his hopes on Tang Hao. As the saying goes, it is hard to know what is in a person's heart. No one knows whether a person is good or bad. As for the person beside Tang Hao, Longao did not recognize him, but he could guess his identity. If he was not mistaken, this person should be the other deputy leader, one of the 8 deputy leaders. In the Martial Artists Alliance, a deputy leader was already a high position. After all, in the entire Martial Artists Alliance, there was only one leader, and that was Ling Er's father, Tong Tiandi. Black Wolf greets the 2 deputy leaders. How dare you, Black Wolf? Who do you think you are? How dare you not kneel in front of the 2 deputy leaders? Kneel down now. The 8 people around him were furious. They had never seen such an arrogant and reckless person. How dare he not kneel in front of the deputy leaders? Not to mention a small inner disciple, even a core disciple or a guardian would not have such an attitude in front of the deputy leaders. However, Longao did not put their roars in his eyes. He chose to ignore them. The more Longao acted like this, the angrier the 8 people beside him. However, Tang Hao waved his hand, and the 8 people did not dare to say anything more. I respect the 2 deputy leaders in my heart, but not on my knees. Twisting words and forcing logic. Tang Hao looked at the young man in front of him with great interest. Because of his granddaughter, of course he would take care of Black Wolf. Otherwise, he would not have stopped the 8 people just now. You're right. Respect should be placed in your heart, not your knees. Black Wolf, do you know your crime? Longao was very grateful to Tang Hao. Longao also finally confirmed that Tang Hao was definitely helping him. Vice Chief Tang, I don't know what crime I've committed. Impudent. Black Wolf, you killed Teng Li without permission. Isn't that a capital offense? Looking at the old man beside Tang Hao, Longao suddenly heard a subtle voice. It was Tang Hao's spiritual sense transmission. With Tang Hao's strength, he believed that Shangguan Yi and the other 8 people would not be able to hear him even if they were face to face. Otherwise, Tang Hao would not be so bold. Even though Tang Hao was the vice chief, he could not help Longao openly. Otherwise, he would become a topic of ridicule. Vice Chief Shangguan, I want to ask, who saw me kill Teng Li? Shangguan Yi was one of the 8 vice chiefs of the Martial Artists Alliance. His strength was unfathomable. Longao instantly knew Shangguan Yi's identity. He became more cautious. He also finally understood why this person had such a strong desire to kill him when he had just entered. It turned out that Shangguan Yi was the ancestor of the Shangguan family. No wonder. Longao knew very well that if Shangguan Yi wanted to deal with him, things would become very troublesome. Fortunately, he had Tang Hao to help him. Shangguan Yi had to be careful. Otherwise, Shangguan Yi would have killed him directly instead of talking nonsense with him. What a quibble. Black Wolf, there's no smoke without fire. Tang Li challenged you before, but you didn't accept the challenge because you were too timid. After that, Tang Li challenged you again and again. You were so angry that you plotted to kill Tang Li. Am I right? F***ck hearing Shangguan Yi's analysis, Longao cursed in his heart. He had seen such a shameless person, but he had never seen such a shameless person. How could he make up such a story? Longao smiled. Black Wolf, why are you smiling? Vice Chief Shangguan, I want to ask, is what you said just now based on evidence or your guess? Of course it's my guess. Longao looked as if he had suddenly realized something. Without continuing to talk nonsense with Shangguan Yi, Longao looked at Tang Hao and said, Vice Chief Tang, I have something to ask you. Tang Hao didn't say anything. He just smiled, but his meaning was very clear. If Shangguan Yi asked Tang Hao, even Shangguan Yi had no right to stop him, let alone the 8 of them. Vice Chief Tang, can you slander a disciple as you wish just because you're the Vice Chief of the Alliance? Or are we, the inner sect disciples, just pawns that can be sacrificed casually in the eyes of the higher-ups like you? Longao's question was very sharp. Shangguan Yi was instantly enraged because he had never expected that Black Wolf would still be so arrogant as if he was not afraid of death. Black Wolf, are you questioning my guess? Longao still chose to ignore Shangguan Yi. The more Longao acted like this, the angrier Shangguan Yi became. As the Vice Chief of the Alliance, when had he ever been ignored? Even the other Vice Chiefs wouldn't dare to act like this, let alone a small inner sect disciple. If he didn't kill this person, how could he save his face? Shangguan Yi's body instantly emitted an unparalleled aura, which suppressed Hei Lang fiercely. If it was an ordinary person, this aura alone was enough to crush an ordinary disciple to death, even if it was an orange-grade great sovereign martial artist. But what about Longao? He didn't care about the aura released by Shangguan Yi. At this moment, Longao didn't continue to wait for his death. He also released his aura, but it was the aura of heaven and earth. Sensing Hei Lang's aura, the 10 of them stood up at the same time. Their faces were all the same, filled with shock and disbelief. It was as if they had encountered something earth-shattering. The aura of heaven and earth, Nirvana rebirth? Impossible, this is impossible. You can't have Nirvana rebirth. Shangguan Yi shook his head and almost shouted. Even Tang Hao was in disbelief because the 10 of them knew what the aura of heaven and earth and Nirvana rebirth meant. How could a small orange-grade great emperor achieve this? But the truth was right in front of them. What was going on? Shangguan Yi immediately retracted his aura and asked impatiently, Black Wolf, let me ask you now. How did you manage to release the aura of heaven and earth just now? I'd be an idiot if I told you. Longao didn't even bother to answer Shangguan Yi. If it weren't for the fact that he was weaker than Shangguan Yi and was in the Martial Artists Alliance, he would have already attacked. Chapter 948. Black Wolf, how did you do it? Tang Hao was completely different from Shangguan Yi. Longao did not try to hide anything. He said, Alliance Master Tang, I saw a vision of heaven and earth by accident and was sucked into it. Longao's words were half true and half false. Even Tang Hao did not tell them everything. After listening, both Tang Hao and Shangguan Yi nodded their heads. This was an opportunity that all warriors yearned for even in their dreams. Black Wolf, I'll ask you again. Did you kill Tang Li? Shangguan Yi was relieved that he was lucky enough to condense the chi of heaven and earth. As for the Nirvana rebirth that the 2 of them had just mentioned, until now, Longao still did not know what it was. It seemed that the chi of heaven and earth he condensed was closely related to the Nirvana rebirth. No. He would not admit it even if he was beaten to death. Longao was not a fool. He knew what it meant if he admitted it. Shangguan Ye's intention was clear. She wanted to force him to admit it and deal with him. Shangguan Ye could not do anything if Longao refused to admit it. Brother Shangguan, since Black Wolf said it was not him, I think there must be some misunderstanding. Why don't we discuss it further? Under normal circumstances, since Tang Hao had already spoken, Shangguan Ye would more or less give him face. No matter what, they were both deputy alliance masters. Even if they did not care about each other, they had to give face to each other. But now, Shangguan Ye sneered and said coldly, if we don't punish such a lawless disciple on the spot, our martial artists alliance will be laughed at. Men, take him down and kill him without mercy. Shangguan Ye. Shangguan Ye waved her hand and did not give Tang Hao any chance to speak. Her voice was extremely cold and murderous. She said, Tang Hao, you and I both know that this person must die today. Tang Hao already knew about the relationship between Shangguan Ye and Black Wolf. Now that things had come to this point, even if it wasn't because of his granddaughter, he wouldn't let Shangguan Ye kill He Lang. The 8 deputy alliance masters of the Martial Artists Alliance all had their own ulterior motives. They fought openly and secretly to suppress each other. Tang Hao knew clearly that if Black Wolf was really killed by Shangguan Ye, he would lose face. Wouldn't he tell everyone that he was afraid of Shangguan Ye? Tang Hao could not let that happen. Shangguan Ye, you can't kill He Lang before the investigation is completed. Tang Hao, are you clearly going against me? You can say whatever you want. Tang Hao and Shangguan Ye were at loggerheads, and a fight could break out at any moment. This scared the 8 people on both sides, and they didn't know what to do. They didn't dare to offend Vice Alliance leader Shangguan, and they also didn't dare to offend Vice Alliance leader Tang. No matter who they offended, only death awaited them. As for Longao, he stood there quietly. As for the 2 Vice Alliance masters, it was as if this matter had nothing to do with him. This caused the 8 of them to feel extremely pained. Longao knew very well that Tang Hao and Shangguan Ye were not acting like this solely because of him. In the end, they both wanted to suppress each other. He was just a fuse. Now, it was time to see who could suppress who between Shangguan Ye and Tang Hao. Longao knew that if Tang Hao suppressed Shangguan Ye, he would be safe. But if Shangguan Ye suppressed Tang Hao, he would be in big trouble. Why do the 2 of you have to be like this? Just as the 2 of them were about to fight, a hearty laugh was heard. Then, Tong Tiendi appeared in the main hall. It was as if he had appeared out of thin air. When they saw Tong Tiendi, everyone bowed respectfully and shouted, Alliance Master. Tong Tiendi waved his hand. He always had a smile on his face. It was as if there was a knife hidden in his smile. All 8 of you, leave. Yes. The 8 of them got up and left quickly. Tang Hao and Shangguan Ye were already at daggers drawn. If they continued to stay, they would not be able to help either of them. Therefore, leaving was the best choice. Have a seat, Deputy Alliance Masters. Thank you, Alliance Master. Shangguan Ye, who had been extremely arrogant just a moment ago, sat down obediently after seeing Tong Tiendi like a mouse seeing a cat. What the hell happened? Ever since Tong Tiendi entered the main hall, he did not look at Longao. It was as if he did not know him. As a result, Longao did not know what the Alliance Master of the Martial Artists Alliance was thinking. Shangguan Ye did not give Tang Hao any chance to speak. Alliance Master, Black Wolf killed Teng Li for no reason. According to the rules of the Alliance, Black Wolf should be executed on the spot. However, Deputy Alliance Master Tang has been siding with him. Deputy Alliance Master Tang, is this true? Tang Hao cursed in his heart. He replied calmly, Alliance Master, as far as I know, it is still unknown whether Black Wolf killed Teng Li or not. Isn't it too hasty to execute Black Wolf on the spot? H. Deputy Alliance Master Tang, you know very well what you are thinking. Tong Tiendi waved his hand and stopped the 2 Deputy Alliance Masters. He smiled and asked, Are you Black Wolf? Yes. Since Tong Tiendi did not know him, Longao chose not to know him either. He wanted to see what Tong Tiendi was up to. Not bad, not bad. Not bad. What did he mean by not bad? Hearing Tong Tiendi say not bad twice in a row, the two deputy alliance masters, including Longao, were very curious. They did not know what Tong Tiendi meant. Alliance master, how should we deal with Black Wolf? No matter if it was Shangguan Ye or Tang Hao, they both knew that He Lang's life or death depended on the alliance master's decision. Because of this, the two of them became even more curious. Under normal circumstances, the alliance master would not interfere in this matter. This was because the alliance master had been cultivating in seclusion for so many years and rarely showed himself. However, he had now appeared for an insignificant inner sect disciple. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would not have believed it. Tong Tiendi did not say anything. He just sat quietly in his seat. No one knew what he was thinking. Tong Tiendi did not say anything. The two deputy alliance masters did not say anything either. As for Longao, he did not say anything either. The entire hall was silent. Shangguan Ye and Tang Hao were waiting for Tong Tiendi's orders. It was up to the alliance master to kill or keep Black Wolf alive. This also showed that Tong Tiendi's decision represented who the alliance master would side with. Alliance master Shangguan, do you have any concrete evidence that Black Wolf killed Teng Li? Hearing the alliance master's words, Shangguan Ye's heart skipped a beat. She sighed inwardly. However, she still answered truthfully, Alliance master, there is no concrete evidence yet. P.S. Some people say that Little Nine is updating for the monthly votes. Little Nine admits that the monthly votes are more motivating. However, it is not all about the monthly votes. Little Nine is angry and will explode tomorrow. I will show you that Little Nine is not doing this for the monthly votes, but for the brothers and sisters who support Little Nine. Chapter 949. Since there is no evidence, how can I execute Black Wolf on the spot? Shangguan Ye felt helpless. No matter what, he had no evidence. However, at this moment, Leader, Executive Mai Kai wants to see you. Executive Mai. Executive Mai was a special person in the Martial Artists Alliance. Strictly speaking, Executive Mai did not belong to the Martial Artists Alliance. However, if the Martial Artists Alliance was in trouble, Executive Mai would have to protect it with his life. As an Executive Mai, he would get very little resources, but he had a lot of power. In other words, Mai Kai, as an Executive Mai, could leave the Martial Artists Alliance whenever he wanted. As for the others, they could not leave sometimes. Yes. Mai Kai pushed the door open and entered the hall. He knelt down on one knee and bowed respectfully. Executive Mai Kai is here to see the leader and the two vice leaders. Mai Kai, what's the matter? Seeing Mai Kai enter, Longao sighed in his heart. Something bad had happened. He had guessed that Mai Kai would definitely deal with him in the Martial Artists Alliance. However, he did not expect that Mai Kai would choose to enter at this moment. Without a doubt, Longao was almost certain that Mai Kai must have spread the news that he killed Teng Li. What was Mai Kai's intention in entering the hall this time? Leader, I have evidence to prove that Black Wolf killed Teng Li. Hearing this, Shangguan Ye was overjoyed. Before the leader could say anything, he said impatiently, Mai Kai, what evidence do you have? Mai Kai did not do anything. No matter what, the leader was here. The two vice leaders had no right to speak. In other words, if the leader did not say anything, the two vice leaders could not make a decision. Say it. Mai Kai nodded. He wished he could kill Longao. He took out a mirror from his chest. Mai Kai's aura burst out and entered the mirror directly. What happened next? The battle between Longao and Teng Li, including the final scene where Teng Li was killed by Longao, was shown in the mirror one by one, as if it was a TV drama. Without any suspense, Longao could almost guess that the mirror that Mai Kai took out should be no small matter. After all, it could record past scenes. Alliance Master, Teng Li was indeed killed by Black Wolf. Alliance Master, Black Wolf killed Teng Li. The evidence is conclusive. Should we kill him? Both Shangguan Yi and Mai Kai seemed to be a little anxious. However, in their opinion, things had already come to this point. Even if Tang Hao wanted to side with Black Wolf, it was impossible. Black Wolf, I really want to know what happened between you and Teng Li. The three of them didn't seem to have expected the Alliance Master's attitude. Especially Shangguan Yi and Mai Kai. Under normal circumstances, with conclusive evidence, Black Wolf would definitely be killed. However, the Alliance Master still wanted to ask if the Alliance Master was biased towards Black Wolf. This didn't seem to be possible. Alliance Master, ever since I joined the Alliance, Teng Li has been causing trouble for me time and time again. I'm a hot-blooded young man. After being provoked like this, of course I wouldn't sit still and wait for my death. Then you shouldn't have killed Black Wolf. You're still quibbling. Alliance Master, I've already given Teng Li many chances, but he was like a mad dog. He wouldn't let me go. In the end, I had no choice but to kill him. Otherwise, the one who would die in the end would be me and not Teng Li. Seeing that Black Wolf ignored him, Shangguan Yi could only stare at the young man in front of him angrily. With the Alliance Master present, even if he had 10,000 guts, he wouldn't dare to act rashly. Even if he was the Vice Alliance Master, he wouldn't be able to withstand the Alliance Master's anger. After hearing what Shangguan Yi said, Tong Tiandi nodded his head and said, "That's understandable." Teng Li was courting death. You can't be blamed. Black Wolf, from now on, you're officially a core disciple of the Alliance. You can also participate in the Burning God region. Alliance Master, you can't do this. Hearing the Alliance Master's decision, Shangguan Yi was shocked. Even if he was beaten to death, he would never have thought that the Alliance Master would be biased towards Black Wolf. What was the meaning of this? The Alliance Master clearly knew that he wanted to kill Black Wolf. Why did he still do this? Did the Alliance Master intend to do this? I've already said it. Alliance Master Shangguan, please leave first. Glaring at Black Wolf in front of him, Shangguan Yi's heart was filled with anger. However, since the Alliance Master had already spoken, he could only leave. Black Wolf, I'll kill you. Not only Shangguan Yi, but even Mai Kai also left. The two of them were completely depressed. They never thought that things would end up like this. The two of them originally thought that Longao would definitely be executed by the Alliance for killing Teng Li. However, in the end, not only was Longao not killed, he even had the opportunity to enter the Burning God region. Both of them were well aware of what the Burning Heaven Divine region represented. Outside the main hall, Alliance Master Tang, we didn't manage to kill Black Wolf this time. What should we do next? Mai Kai's little mouse had been captured by the other party, and he wished he could immediately get it back. However, Mai Kai was very clear that if Teng Li could be killed by Hei Lang, then even if it was him, he would probably not be a match for Hei Lang. Until now, Mai Kai still couldn't believe that Black Wolf was a mere illusionary divine martial artist. In just a few months, Black Wolf had become a peak orange grade Great Emperor. This cultivation speed was too fast. It was so fast that it was terrifying. Shangguan Yi's expression was extremely ugly. The Alliance Master's decision to side with Black Wolf was like a slap to his face. As the Deputy Alliance Master, he had completely lost his face this time. However, what could he do now that the Alliance Master was here personally? This time, Hei Lang has won. With the Alliance Master's decision, we can't deal with this brat openly. However, Hei Lang will enter the Burning Heaven Divine region later. This is our chance. No matter what happens, we must kill this brat in the Burning Heaven Divine region. Alliance Master Tang, there are only 100 slots for the Burning God region every year. It won't be easy for us to let our own people enter the Burning God region. After all, Mai Kai also wanted to enter the Burning God region. However, he knew that with his status, it would be difficult for him to enter. However, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As long as Deputy Alliance Master Tang agreed, he would be able to obtain one slot out of the 100 slots. Shangguan Yi started to ponder. After thinking for a while, he said, I can obtain 10 slots out of the 100 slots. I don't believe that I can't kill Black Wolf in the Burning God region this time. Deputy Alliance Master Tang, I also want to enter the Burning God region. I can guarantee that I will bring Black Wolf's head to you. Sure. However, let's make things clear first. If you can't kill Black Wolf, you will have to bring your own head back to me. Mai Kai clenched his fists tightly. He told himself that he could only win this time and not lose. P.S. Depending on my performance tomorrow, I will silence the person who started this rumor. Chapter 950. Inside the main hall. Thank you, Alliance Master. Thank you, Vice Alliance Master. Longao knew that Tong Tiendi was obviously siding with him this time. Black Wolf, do you know what kind of place the Burning Sky God domain is? Longao shook his head. He was really curious about the Burning Sky God domain that Tong Tiendi had mentioned. Then, Tang Hao explained to Longao about the Burning Sky God domain. So that's how it is. The Burning Sky God domain was a mysterious place. It was also one of the forbidden areas of the Martial Artists Alliance. Just like the Water Moon Paradise, no one was allowed to enter the Burning Sky God domain without the orders of the Alliance Master or the Alliance. Otherwise, they would be killed without mercy. The Burning Sky God domain would open every year. Every time it opened, only 100 people could enter. The Martial Artists Alliance had millions of disciples. One could imagine how precious 100 people were. To martial artists, the Burning Sky God domain was a cultivation sacred emperor. Every time one entered, they could stay for a month. As for whether they could find any opportunities, it would depend on their luck. Black Wolf, there are 6 Desolation Divine Thrones in the Burning Sky God domain. If you have the chance to sit on them and sense them, you will get what you want. 6 Desolation Divine Thrones? Although Tang Hao was famous, Longao had already sensed the meaning behind his words. It seemed that the 6 Desolation Divine Thrones were not simple. If he entered the Burning Sky God domain, he must pay more attention to the so-called 6 Desolation Divine Thrones. Black Wolf, there are a total of 100 people entering the Burning Sky God domain every year. The lowest cultivation must be at the Great Emperor realm. He was a little surprised. This condition was a little too harsh. In other words, if one wanted to enter the Burning Heaven Divine region, only core disciples could enter. According to Tang Hao, the 100 spots to enter the Sky Burning Divine region were divided into red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple, black, and white ranks. Among them, there could be 10 golden Great Emperors and titled Great Emperors in total. Black Wolf, I hope you can gain something in the Burning Sky God domain. I will. Since that's the case, you can leave first. Longao didn't stay either. He was lucky that he wasn't killed by Mai Kai and Shangguan Yi this time. All of this was thanks to Tang Hao and Tong Tiendi. Looking at Black Wolf who had already left, Tong Tiendi asked, Tang Hao, you're intentionally siding with Black Wolf this time. Just what is it for? Tong Tiendi was not a fool. As the leader of the Martial Artists Alliance, he could be said to be an old fox. How could he not see that Tang Hao was intentionally siding with Black Wolf? Since things had come to this point, Tang Hao did not hide anything. He nodded and told them about the relationship between Black Wolf and his granddaughter. After hearing this, Tong Tiendi had a look of sudden realization. Tang Hao, you are mine. There are no secrets between us. Tang Hao smiled. This was because the entire Martial Artists Alliance did not know that he was actually the leader's man. He had followed the leader for 100 years and could be considered a blood relation. Alliance leader, you allowed Black Wolf to enter the Burning Sky God domain this time. If Shangguan Yi chooses to deal with him at this time, I'm afraid that Black Wolf's situation will be very dangerous. Tong Tiendi nodded. How could he not know about this? Growing in adversity, rising in slaughter. I want to see how Black Wolf will be able to leave the Burning Sky God domain alive. If he can't even endure this little bit of training, Tong Tiendi did not continue speaking. As for the meaning behind his words, perhaps only Tang Hao could understand. Alliance leader, just now, Black Wolf's body suddenly erupted with the aura of heaven and earth. It blocked Shangguan Ye's aura suppression. What happened? He seemed to be very surprised. This was because even Tong Tiendi knew very well what the aura of heaven and earth meant. No matter what, Black Wolf was still an orange-grade Great Emperor. It was impossible for him to possess the aura of heaven and earth. Not to mention Great Emperors, even divine Dao martial artists could not condense the aura of heaven and earth. Tang Hao narrated what had just happened in full detail. Before he finished, he said, "Alliance leader, under normal circumstances, unless one is reborn from nirvana, it is impossible to condense the aura of heaven and earth. However, there are some geniuses who can condense the aura of heaven and earth in advance." Tang Hao, some people can condense the aura of heaven and earth in advance. Do you know what this means? Possessing the aura of heaven and earth can block the aura suppression of high-level martial artists. The aura of heaven and earth was one of the most terrifying forces in the world. Tang Hao had just witnessed an orange-grade Great Emperor using the aura of heaven and earth to block Shangguan Ye's aura suppression. This already explained everything. You don't know. Seeing the alliance leader smile, Tang Hao was very curious. He could not think of any other use for the aura of heaven and earth other than blocking the aura suppression of high-level martial artists. Aura of heaven and earth condense, Nirvana rebirth set. Aura of heaven and earth condense, Nirvana rebirth set? What did this mean? Tang Hao asked curiously, "Alliance leader, what do you mean by these two sentences?" Tang Hao was very clear about the alliance leader's strength. It was unfathomable. As for what realm the alliance leader had reached, even he could not sense it. Just thinking about it was terrifying. Aura of heaven and earth condense, Nirvana rebirth set. Tong Tiendi sighed and said, "I also did not expect Black Wolf to be able to condense the aura of heaven and earth as an orange-grade Great Emperor. This in itself is already certain that Black Wolf will be able to achieve Nirvana rebirth in the future." Hearing the alliance leader's words, Tang Hao was shocked. He was very clear about what Nirvana rebirth meant. "Alliance leader, can Black Wolf really reach that stage? Aura of heaven and earth condense, Nirvana rebirth set. If it has been passed down for countless years, there shouldn't be any problems. Therefore, no matter what happens, we have to protect this child." Tong Tiendi was clearly a little surprised. This was because he did not expect Longao to be able to condense the aura of heaven and earth. No wonder Long Ditien valued this child so much. It seemed like there was no smoke without fire. "We are unable to control the burning divine region. However, don't worry, alliance leader. I will arrange for my own people to enter. However, I'm afraid that it will be somewhat impossible for Black Wolf to obtain the Desolation Divine Throne." Tong Tiendi did not say anything. There were too many variables in everything. Even if Black Wolf's talent and potential were there, he did not dare to be certain. However, Tong Tiendi was certain of one thing. From now on, he would properly train Longao. Tong Tiendi's intention was very simple. He wanted to keep Longao in the Martial Artists Alliance forever. As for the agreement with Long Ditien, Tong Tiendi did not take it to heart. The entire Great Hall was silent. Alliance leader Tong Tiendi and Vice Alliance leader Tang Hao did not speak. The two of them sat quietly in the Great Hall. No one knew what the two of them were thinking. The news of Black Wolf killing Teng Li but not being executed instantly spread throughout the Martial Artists Alliance. Everyone who received the news was shocked. They did not know what the Alliance was up to this time. P.S. Today's 3 chapters have been delivered. Little 9 will stay up late tonight and will continue to update after midnight. Chapter 951. As soon as Longao left the hall, he ran into Shangguan Yi and Mai Kai. As the saying goes, when enemies meet, their eyes blaze with hatred. Neither of them found the other pleasing to the eye. He snorted coldly. Shangguan Yi said coldly, "Black Wolf, don't think that you won't die just because the Alliance Master sided with you." Before Longao could say anything, Shangguan Yi continued, "In the Burning Sky Divine Region, I'll make you wish you were dead." Shangguan Yi dropped her threat and immediately turned to leave. Mai Kai naturally wouldn't choose to stay behind by himself. In fact, Mai Kai was more or less afraid of Black Wolf. After all, if Black Wolf could kill Teng Li, he could kill him as well. It was fine to kill Teng Li, but it was also fine to kill him. Shangguan Yi. Looking at the two people who were gradually disappearing, Longao's expression was a bit grave. Because of Shangguan Yi's status, casually finding some of his own people to enter the Burning Heaven Divine Region was simply an easy matter. According to Tang Hao, only martial emperors could enter the Burning Sky Divine Region. Even so, he was still in constant danger. The Burning Sky Divine Region was filled with danger, but it was also filled with endless opportunities. To Longao, the Burning Sky Divine Region was definitely a good place to cultivate and gain experience. That was indeed the case. Longao had already decided to enter the Burning Sky Divine Region to gain experience. After leaving, he would look for Yu Yin. Black Wolf, come with me. At this moment, Longao heard Tang Hao calling for him. He was a little curious. However, Tang Hao had helped him just now. Otherwise, Shangguan Yi would have already dealt with him before Tong Tiandi came. He followed Tang Hao all the way south and arrived at a secluded pavilion. After entering the pavilion, Tang Hao smiled and said, "Sit." "Thank you, Uncle Tang." Just now in the main hall, in front of Shangguan Yi, Longao naturally wouldn't call Tang Hao uncle. After all, it was best to keep his relationship with Tang Hao a secret. Longao could tell that Shangguan Yi and Tang Hao were not on good terms. They were like fire and water. "Black Wolf, you've really surprised me. In just a few short months, you've made another breakthrough in your cultivation. Not only that, you've even condensed the chi of heaven and earth." Longao smiled but didn't say anything. "Black Wolf, do you know what the guild master said to me just now? Please tell me, Uncle Tang." Longao was very curious because he had already guessed that what the Alliance Master said to Tang Hao must have something to do with him. Because of this, he was very much looking forward to it. He didn't know what the Alliance Master said to Tang Hao. Tang Hao smiled. He had a mysterious look on his face. The more Tang Hao behaved like this, the more curious Longao was. He felt depressed but maintained an indifferent expression on his face. "The Alliance Master said to me that the chi of heaven and earth had condensed and the Nirvana rebirth had been fixed." The chi of heaven and earth had condensed and the Nirvana rebirth had been fixed. Hearing Tang Hao's two sentences, Longao was a little curious. He could still understand the first sentence, heaven and earth chi condense, but as for the second sentence, Nirvana rebirth, he was confused. He didn't know what it meant. The chi of heaven and earth had condensed. If he wasn't wrong, it should be referring to the chi of heaven and earth that he had condensed. "Uncle Tang, what do these two sentences mean?" With a look of envy on his face, Tang Hao smiled and said, "Black Wolf, before I explain these two sentences, I want to ask you. Do you know the division of martial artist strength?" Longao was getting more and more curious. He didn't know why Tang Hao asked this question, but he still nodded and replied, "Yes. The division of martial artist strength is divided into the acquired realm, Xiantian realm, transformation realm, nihility realm, illusionary divine realm, great emperor realm, half-god realm, divine realm, supreme divine realm, and the 9 realms of martial Dao." You're right. In the eyes of ordinary people, the supreme divine realm is already the peak of martial artists. However, I believe you should know that there's a supreme divine realm above the supreme divine realm. Longao certainly knew about this. Could it be that one had to break through to the supreme divine realm to be able to condense the chi of heaven and earth? Heilang, I can now clearly tell you that on the path of martial arts, the supreme divine way is not the peak of martial arts. Longao also knew about this, so he wasn't surprised. Above the supreme divine realm, there were the heaven Dao and the divine mathematician. In the entire Tianwu continent, only the divine mathematician and the heaven Dao had reached the true peak of martial arts. Seeing that Black Wolf didn't say anything, Tang Hao thought that Black Wolf was frightened by his words. However, he felt relieved after thinking about it. After all, no matter who it was, as long as they heard such words, they would be shocked speechless. In the 10 Directions tripod competition, even the inner disciples would think that on the path of martial arts, only the Supreme Divine Way was the true peak existence, and not the so-called Supreme Divine Way martial artists. There's a legendary realm above the Supreme Divine Realm. According to the legends, only by breaking through to this realm can one be considered to have truly stepped onto the peak of martial arts. Uncle Tang, this realm is Nirvana rebirth? Seeing that Tang Hao nodded, Longao wasn't as surprised as he had imagined. Ever since he had inadvertently condensed the chi of heaven and earth, Longao had heard the words Nirvana rebirth from many people. Therefore, Longao had already guessed that the realm above the Supreme Divine Realm that Tang Hao had just mentioned was very likely the so-called Nirvana rebirth realm. It seems that you've already guessed it. Black Wolf, I can now tell you clearly that the realm above the Supreme Divine Realm is the so-called Nirvana realm. The Nirvana realm was a legendary existence. Longao could even guess that the Oracle and Tian Dao had definitely reached the Nirvana realm. Uncle Tang, if that's the case, can I understand that the chi of heaven and earth that I condensed is the powerful chi of heaven and earth possessed by a Nirvana realm martial artist? Just as you guessed, the meaning of the two sentences that the Alliance Chief said about condensing the chi of heaven and earth and Nirvana rebirth is very simple. As long as there are no accidents, any martial artist who can condense the chi of heaven and earth will definitely reach the Nirvana realm in the future. Nodding his head, Longao also understood the meaning of these two sentences. However, he was very clear that even if it was like this, wanting to smoothly reach the Nirvana realm was not a simple matter. Because there were too many variables in this process, no one knew what would happen in the future. Black Wolf, the Nirvana realm is a legendary existence. I really hope that you can reach that step. Could he reach the Nirvana realm? Longao didn't dare to be sure. His heart seemed to be in a mess as he helplessly said, Uncle Tang, I really want to hear about the 6 Desolation Divine Thrones in the Burning Sky Divine region. I believe that Uncle Tang also knows that I entered the Burning Sky Divine region this time to find the Desolation Divine Thrones, aside from gaining experience. However, I don't have the slightest understanding of the 6 Desolation Divine Thrones. P.S. Explosive First Chapter. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.